This is the Sons of UCF podcast, your place for UCF sports talk year-round. Now, here is Adam and Mike.
Hey now, welcome back into the 144th edition, oh my goodness, of the Sons of UCF. My name is Adam, and as always, I've got my friend and yours, Mr. UCF Mike back for another week. This show's off to a great start, Mike. How are you?
I am ready to go, baby. Let's do this. There's only this show and next week's show before we start the season. This is the time of year. Get the last weekend with your family in now. Warn everybody. Your husbands, your wives, your kids. You got this weekend, and then everything revolves around UCF football. Every weekend, now you got to plan around this. What time's the game? We can't make other plans. No weddings, none of this other stuff going on. It's football season, baby. I can't wait. We're almost there.
We are almost there. Actually, our guest tonight is actually getting married in October. I don't know. I didn't want to say anything to him because he's a lot bigger than us, but that could be a fatal faux pas for him. But on the show tonight, Mike, here's what we got. We got some headlines off the top. UCF's planning some construction. Some new guys are coming to play with us. Basketball releases a schedule. We'll get into all of that. It's a tradition unlike any other. The preseason Sonnies, Mike. This time, part 2, we will give you our predictions for some of the major categories: MVP, Newcomer, and of course the annual Marlon Williams Breakout Player of the Year award. All that's coming up as well. Cow of the week towards the end, Mike. And our guest this week, a very large human being, Mr. Paul Carrington, UCF defensive end from 2002-2005, was good enough to join us, and he shared some good insight on his time at UCF, both as a player and as a coach. You don't want to miss that, Mike. A jam-packed episode 144.
That's right. Carrington was great, so you guys are going to enjoy that one. And then so much still going on around UCF campus. We got to talk about all that.
We will, and if you want to learn more about us, make sure you follow us on the social media stuff at Sons of UCF or wherever you do your social media thing. Also, don't forget about our YouTube channel, which has some exclusive one-on-one interviews our guy Trace Trelko has done with some of the players in Media Day. Those are being posted each week. We also do a live show on Thursdays on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, so don't miss that as well. And if you want to follow Mike on Twitter, at UCFMike1 is where you find him. Our website is twonightsmedia.com, Mike. And before we go anywhere, why don't you plug the tailgate? Because we are, as we record this now, 10 days away from the tailgate. I know you got the official information in the mail today, so this thing is real. So off the top, give people some understanding of what this tailgate thing is all about, where they can find us. Let's lay down the deets for all the people out there who want to come hang out with us on September 2nd.
Right in front of the stadium, in front of the Roth Tower entrance. You will not be able to miss us. We'll have a tent set up, and there will be a sign that says Sons of UCF. You know what I did today, too? I bought some balloons, some UCF balloons, some black and gold balloons. I'll tie those suckers onto the tent, and this way everybody will be able to find us pretty easy. And bring your own beer, bring your own drinks, bring your own food. I'll pick up some extra things. You know, I'm thinking about maybe bringing some potato salad and stuff for people to share or whatever, some side dishes. But bring your own stuff. Don't rely on us to feed you. Just come have a good time. We'll have the music going. We have our buddy bringing that launch game that we talked about. He's going to set that up. We're going to have some other games going on and just hanging out, getting ready for football season.
Yeah, bring the family, bring the kids. Yeah, stop on by, stay 5 minutes, stay 5 hours, whatever you want to do. Obviously, we're excited to meet as many people as we can and celebrate the kickoff to a new year. If that's not enough, potato salad should absolutely get you to the
Tater salad.
Tater salad should get you to the tailgate if that's not enough. So make sure you come by, hang out with us. Again, we can't wait to meet everybody. We'll have, I don't know, I've got a UCF football. We can throw that around too, Mike. These balloons, by the way, how are you blowing these things up? Are they helium? Are you blowing them up before the game? What's the strategy behind the balloons?
No, I'm guessing they're coming in a box I'm having them delivered to my house. I'm just going to bring them there. I'm going to throw you some. I'm going to tell you to blow a couple up. I'll have your kids blow a couple up, and it shouldn't take long. I didn't get 1,000 balloons. All right. A couple packs of balloons. Everybody blows a couple up. We tie them up, and away we go.
All right, well, my lung capacity may be compromised, but I will do what I can to help out the cause here. Helium may be better if we can figure that out, but don't worry, we'll get all the details ironed out. All you got to do is just show up and wear your black and gold, be a Knight fan, come hang out, say hello, and we can't wait to meet everybody. And Mike, the spot we're tailgating in, if Terry Mohajir has his way, I don't know if that spot will exist in just a couple of years, Mike, because Terry Mohajir went to the Board of Trustees meeting last week. We talked about this in the live show on Thursday, and announced a rather robust plan to upgrade the academic facilities, specifically the football side of things, a $50 million project to create what he's calling a football-only campus. That includes a new sort of a launch area is what he's calling it, kind of like a launch club that will remove some seats from the students, but have a really cool view. Some coaches' offices there. The new Recovery Cove is there. I think it's called Recovery River now, though, so it's more for a therapeutic. He wants to build Nicholson Plaza with some lights, some parking, some new seating for students. It's got a standing room only on the other end zone side. A robust $50 million project, Mike. Obviously, this seems really cool, but not a single brick has been laid. So what do you make of the plans for Timo and the UCF, brain trust there around upgrading the football campus, if you will?
Well, he's not wasting any time. The guy's only been here, 6 months? And he said, when I spoke to him at the Charge On Tour, that we had a lot of work to do with facilities. He's jumping right into it. And I love the renderings that have come out. Everything looks very cool. He's got moving some practice fields around. He's got the Recovery River is going to be cool. That was in the works before he got here, but they tweaked it up a little bit. So everything looks very nice on paper, but they are just renderings. And as he tried to warn everybody, this is not a final draft here. So things can change between now and groundbreaking. And we just got to raise some money to do it. And this is just part of his plan. The $50 million is part of what he was saying, a $130 million project to redo a lot of the facilities around campus. This is mainly for football, but he also said for football. So soccer is going to be involved too on this, and upgrades to the soccer stadium, maybe moving the track around somewhere else. So a lot of plans in the works. Let's see. They even have the phases down of when they're going to start doing what first. But hopefully in the next few years, this whole side of campus is going to look a little different.
Yeah, he had a press conference on Friday where he was very much, to your point, couching, hey, these are just renderings. We don't know what the actual finality of this might be. He didn't want to put a timeline on anything. He also referenced that these kind of renderings came about really quickly. He called some people that he knew and said they kind of put them together. And I think, Mike, if you read between the lines, I think there's an element of this where Timo's positioning UCF as you think about conference expansion. Obviously, there's all kinds of rumors about conferences and what they're going to do, and will they add teams. I think Timo saw an opportunity to make sure that UCF's well positioned to get involved in the arms race that is football facilities these days. So probably no coincidence there. Maybe he got the renderings a little sooner than he maybe was planning to. But obviously, you got to be excited about it. Do you think these renderings and this plan helps UCF in that quest to potentially break into one of those Autonomous 5 or Autonomous 4, whatever they'll end up being, leagues?
Yeah, it can't hurt. It shows the commitment that we have as a program to move this football program further, all the way to the top, to compete with the biggest teams in the country, the Alabamas, the Floridas. He mentioned those schools by name in his press conference. He says, these are the schools we're competing against in recruiting. These are the schools we're going to try to compete with. Obviously, we don't have the money to build the facilities that these guys have. If we were in one of these conferences, we would match them with everything. But right now, we're doing what we can with the money that we have. But it shows that we are serious about what we're doing. And we built the on-campus stadium years ago, something the Cows have never done. The Cows have done nothing but come up with renderings of indoor practice facilities.
That's true.
And they've never come through with any of that. Mohajir is a builder. He's done this everywhere he's been. He did it at FAU. He was part of building that stadium on campus. He did it at Arkansas State, where they did a lot of fundraising and a lot of improvements on their campus over there. And now he's doing it here at UCF. And he's a man of his word, and I like where he's taken this program.
Yeah, you mentioned that he built a sizable addition to Arkansas State's football facilities as well. And so it's also the option. I think the thing he said that's interesting is he's also trying to figure out ways to continue to increase revenue, right? So you think about the Launch Club, which is kind of an exclusive sort of luxury box, low suite situation, which I'm sure will cost a pretty premium penny to get seats in there. You mentioned the Recovery River, so cove gating, I guess, on the water is going to be an option for future seasons. So he's also continued to think about ways to drum up revenue, and some of these options I think add to that, Mike. And it's interesting is can UCF end up paying for this? Obviously, he also announced in that press conference we now have over 200 members of the Shareholder Society. So those are, I think, donors that are $25K and up, I think, are in there. And so we definitely have increased the donor base. But, Mike, it's going to cost a lot of money. Do you think it's feasible? Will the money be there in order to actually make any of this come to fruition?
Yeah, I think part of the money is already there. The Recovery Cove area, I think, was already basically all paid for or earmarked, but I think McNamara put his money down for that. So the fan base is growing every day. The donor number you just listed, 200, that was no, he wants to be at 200, right?
He said we are at over 200 members of the shareholder. Yeah.
Right, and we're just recently, I think we were like 185, not long ago,
yes.
As in a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
So that number is growing quickly. And when people see projects like this on the books, it makes them want to get involved. And I think we picked up a few guys just in the last week because of this announcement. And the more things he gets the fan base excited about, I think the more people that will jump on board.
Well, I think it's almost like a magic trick. It's like Terry Mohadra could be like David Blaine, right? And all you got to do is if you win games, people's wallets fly open, right? So all UCF really has to do is if they're able to come out and put together a season where we're conference champions, we're potentially contending to go to a New Year's Six game or maybe even further than that, wallets are just going to fly open, right? And this is one of those deals where the on-field product will definitely drive what happens, I think, off the field. So this is a pivotal year, I think, for Gus, obviously, because this is the momentum right now. I think Timo's sensing the momentum. He's sensing how excited UCF's fan base is. Again, I don't think this is something that UCF fans would have doled out for last November when we were kind of struggling through the end of the season there. I think he's capitalizing on sort of the promise of new, the promise of potential, conference changes, Gus Malzahn's excitement as the head coach, the future of college football. And if they can put some W's on the board, Mike, wallets are just going to just fly right open.
Well, winning is always what gets people most excited. And you can come up with these drawings and plans all you want. If you put out a clunker of a season, then nobody cares anymore. So winning is the most important thing. And you're right. You string a couple of those seasons together, and that's when the fan base really gets pumped up.
Well, and again, and it's not just football. We should note, obviously, you mentioned Timo talked about building a world-class soccer facility for both the men's and women's soccer programs. He talked heavily about how he feels like that's a sport UCF should absolutely continue to invest in, and they think they can dominate. The track, it sounds like, maybe relocated from where it's currently at, and I don't know if he was specific about where that would be at. But the track is another option. He also mentioned, I think it was our guy Trey Strelko said, "Hey, when you got here, what as you assessed the facilities, what did you find? What did you think?" And he was kind of coy in his answer and basically said, "I saw that we're lacking in a few areas." And he declined to say what those areas are. So whatever those are, I don't know if that's included in the 150 he's looking for overall. Are there more areas that he wants to upgrade? But obviously, Timo's proved himself to be a guy who came in hard after facilities. And I don't know that. Is it fair to say Danny White didn't focus on that? Were there just other priorities? But it definitely seems like Timo is much more engaged in the facilities side of it than at least we saw from Danny White.
All right. He's already done things since he's been here in the last few months. We got the new turf inside the practice facility, which was well overdue. They redid the inside of the football buildings to make it more attractive during recruiting. They already started putting new turf down inside the baseball stadium. So he is coming in. He's a man of action, and he's getting stuff done. And that's what you got to like to see. He's not just paying lip service to the fans, say, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and not do anything. He's coming in, and he's taking care of business.
Well, and thank God they finally painted that indoor practice facility, or Cross-Seg Advisor was going to lose his mind. Luckily, they got that taken care of.
That's right. And that's for us, too, because we're tailgating right next to that thing. We didn't want to look at that yellow building that was there. Now it looks nice. So good for us.
Good for us indeed. Actually, as we were talking, I see another tweet came through that another shareholder society donations come in. So I don't know if that's 201. I can't keep track of all that stuff, Mike. But again, if you win, you get butts in seats and you get walls to fly open. And UCF may just make that dream come true of building those facilities, Mike. Speaking of games, obviously we are now 10 days away from the opener. And one of the hotly, thought about topics, which is unfortunate, is what's happening with the stadium, what's happening with COVID policies. UCF released their What You Need to Know guide for the 2021 football season. And just the preview edition here, they are strongly encouraging fans to get vaccinated. And if you're able to do so, to do that. They also strongly recommend that all of our fans wear masks indoors in line with the latest CDC guidelines. And then they note, although most of our stadium is outdoors, please keep in mind that in some areas, such as restrooms, are indoors. Masks will be made available inside the stadium for those who need them. They are encouraging hand washing. They're going to have hand sanitizer stations nearby. And obviously they're saying that if you have COVID or you're not feeling well or you're in quarantine, to please stay home and not attend the game, Mike. So I think if I'm reading this correctly, it doesn't sound like they're going to mandate masks in the stadium while game is being played. I know that was one of those hotly debated topics, Mike. I don't know how this impacts the attendance. What are you expecting for game one? Obviously, we know that the COVID spike in Florida is a real thing. What are you expecting attendance-wise for Boise and UCF? I think I don't know if it's completely sold out. I heard Mark Daniel say that he was surprised how many Boise people are actually making the trek. Give me some predictions on crowd size.
I think it's going to be a sellout. I think this game will sell out. We're very close to sell out right now at 98%. There's been plenty of games in the past where we're not this close to selling out leading up to the game, and then the walk-ups come in and take care of business. Plus, UCF always, if there's a availability, they'll overflow the students in there. I think there's going to be over 45,000 people in there. I think it'll be a good, loud crowd. The tailgating, I think, is going to be fun. I think a lot of people are going to be out there for that. Maybe there's going to be some people that are going to skip the tailgating and just go to the game. But I expect it to be raucous crowd out there. And, we're wearing just common sense is the thing. They want you to wear a mask when you're indoors. I mean, that affects people in the club area, I guess, and the suites. But when you go to the bathroom, I guess, throw a mask on. And other than that, you're outdoors. Just don't be going around touching people and touching your face and stuff.
That's probably a good rule nonetheless. I'm going to write that one down.
Normally, I'm a guy that, I'm high-fiving everybody in my section when things go down. I'm turning around, high-fiving the people behind me. I don't know if I'm going to do that as much this game. But I'll still be there cheering on the team. So other than that, I think it's going to be just as usual. So.
Yeah, I'm curious. Obviously, the two factors. It's a Thursday night game, so if you have to work that day, can you get there in time? If you have to work the next day, are you going to be able to make it? Right. So, some people maybe will that keep them away? Obviously, it's a national televised game, so if you're not able to make it, it's not like it's a hard game to find. You don't have to watch it on ESPN Plus or something. You can probably sit on your couch and enjoy the game. So, but it's also the first time, to your point, Mike, and I don't know what. I can't do the math, but at least a full calendar year that people have had a chance to do any sort of tailgating, which for those of you who obviously are football fans, the tailgate is just as much fun sometimes as the actual game. So the tailgating element coming back in, obviously the opening game, the Gus Malzahn era. I think a lot of people are probably going to want to be there and say that they were there for the first game under the Gus Malzahn era. So I think it'll be a big crowd, but I'm curious to see if those factors play any role at all. But I think it's 98% season tickets sold out. I think there's still a little bit of hangers on from the season ticket standpoint, Mike. So you definitely think we'd be positioned to have a pretty good crowd. But I guess you never know as the random Thursday game and obviously the COVID stuff, how that'll impact everything.
Yeah, and people that don't want to go, they can always sell their tickets, and there's probably plenty of people out there willing to buy those tickets. So I expect a full house, man. So everybody just be safe. Do what you got to do to keep yourself safe. That means what? If you want to wear a mask in the stadium, go ahead. Wear a mask in the stadium. That makes you feel better. Then go for it. I don't think there should be any mask shaming going on for people that don't want to wear it. Just everybody do what they want to do to make themselves feel better.
Yeah, I think I said this a few weeks ago. Be smart. Whatever your smart is, be that. and just be respectful of other people, right? If their smart is different than you're smart, then that's fine. Doesn't mean that there has to be a conversation. Just be smart. Do what you think you need to do to keep yourself and everyone around you safe. And like Mike said, don't go around touching people. I just feel like that's a recipe for disaster, Mike. Since we last spoke, at least on the pod, we talked about this on the live show. We had 2 new booms come rolling in, Mike. Joey Gatewood, a transfer quarterback from Kentucky, before that Auburn, a local Florida guy from Jacksonville, has announced that he will be coming to UCF. Again, he's a quarterback right now. Will he stay that way? I don't know. He was highly rated. I think he's a 4-star guy. Has gotten some spot time playing around in Kentucky and Auburn. He announced that he would be heading to UCF. And then Grant Stevens, who is a tight end who initially committed to Coastal Carolina, backed off that commitment, and then on Sunday, Mike announced that he would be coming to UCF, which is actually pretty cool for yours truly, in that he actually attends the high school that my daughter now attends, and so she got to see him play on Friday, although they lost 24-17, so I'm not sure how well he played, Mike. But 2 new booms at UCF, a tight end and a quarterback who maybe becomes a tight end, who knows. Your thoughts on the 11th, at least actual real recruit, and then another transfer coming to UCF?
Well, it just shows Gus has not stopped this recruiting just because he's preparing for the Boise State game. So that's still rolling on. And it's Joey Gatewood. That's someone he's already familiar with, somebody that Darren Hinshaw is already familiar with, working with him in Kentucky. And he's a great athlete coming out of high school. That's what everybody says, what kind of athlete he is. He's got the size. And whether he's a quarterback or a tight end, we're going to find that out. But we know he can do stuff on the field that it's pretty special. So, and then this other kid, you got to give us a scouting report now. You got to follow this kid along all season and let us know what's going on here.
I thought about pulling like a media thing and bum rushing the field and getting one of those, cell phone videos of him after the game. But my daughter would kill me if I embarrassed her like that. So, which actually may make it all worthwhile, to believe it or not.
All right. So you're going to be catching maybe a game or 2 here and there and let us know how this kid does.
Yeah, obviously, again, I think, Gus mentioned this before that, they're working hard on these 22s, I think is what he kept saying. Obviously this class was largely baked when he walked in, but they're working hard on the 22s, so the 11th one. And this is the cool time of year, Mike, because you're getting to see some of these kids now actually playing real games. We saw there was a video floating around social media of Thomas Castellanos. He's the quarterback out of Georgia we recruited, Mike. He threw like a laser, like 40-yarder on the run across his body for a wide open touchdown. Again, obviously high school talent, you never know, but it's now you're getting to see some of these kids actually in live game action, and it's cool to kind of follow them along too. So as of right now, I mean, Gus has a relatively highly recruited class that's coming in, and obviously we're not done yet, so we'll see if he can add some more to that. Obviously the transfer portal has been a big thing of him, but Gus continues to be booming in terms of bringing in that talent.
And the one thing that everybody complained about last year, especially under Heupel, not enough kids from Florida. I believe 8 of the 11 Gus kids now are from the state of Florida. So he's keeping it close to home like he said he was going to.
A couple other quick football news and notes, Mike, before we get on to a quick basketball update. Today, ESPN released its top 100 players in college football. And UCF has a bit of an interesting distinction here. Dylan Gabriel, our very own DG, was ranked number 33 on the list, Mike, which represents him as the top player in all of the state of Florida with a 33 ranking. The next highest one is De'Ara King at 36, Mike. Dylan Gabriel, the best player in Florida. Your thoughts?
That's not a surprise to me. If you watched him the last couple of years, you know how special he is. And he is poised now to have a very big season. I'm not surprised at all. I watch a lot of Hurricanes and Florida State and Florida games when we're not playing, and I don't see really anybody on those teams that is better than Dylan Gabriel.
And then an interesting news and note that broke today, Mike. Former UCF defensive back Brandon Moore, who you may recall shipped it up to Tallahassee and was going to play there. News came out today from the FSU guys that Brandon Moore no longer listed on the roster. Sounds like it's not injury related. Sounds like he's just not with the team. I think that was confirmed by coaches there, Mike. So Brandon Moore appears to be out or done at Florida State. I don't know what that means for him next, but at least another night that had gone to Tallahassee along with Mackenzie Milton, no longer there.
Yeah, that one kind of took me by surprise today. I didn't see that one coming. I don't know what's going on with Brandon. Hopefully he gets a shot somewhere and he's able to prove what he can do. He's never been able to come back from that injury that he sustained in week 1 in 2019 against FAMU. So we haven't got to see him come back and do the comeback tour. Hopefully he's healthy and somebody will give him a chance. His brother's coming to UCF soon. I don't know if there's a chance of him coming back here or if he's just going to move on and say that's it for football with him. I don't know. But
yeah, I don't know the rules on that. Right? I don't know if he needs to get a waiver to play. I don't know how that works. I think he was a walk-on at Florida State, if I have that right. So I don't know how any of this works with the NCAA. Does he need a waiver to come back? Would UCF want him back at this point? I know there's rumors circulating potentially of more guys dinged up in the secondary. So is that an area that we feel like we need to improve upon? Would he want to come back? Obviously, his brother won't be here until next year. So I don't know what that means. He left under a previous coaching staff, perhaps a new one's coming in. So I know people are asking that question, and they're kind of saying bring Brandon home. Don't know if that's even feasible. Don't know if he wants to come back. Don't know if that's something that can even work out. But obviously, we wish Brandon the best. Obviously, his knee injury was just a terrible opportunity at that point. We were winning pretty handily in that game, and that's one of those that you wish you could have back. So we'll see what the future holds for Brandon, and if he can make it back to UCF, great. If not, hopefully things work out well for him, Mike. But switching from football to hoops, the men's non-conference basketball schedule was released today, Mike, and I got to tell you, there's some pretty sneaky good games on this non-con. I don't know if you've had a chance to check it out. I will read it for you here briefly. So we open against Bobby Morris. Then we're at Miami, home for Jacksonville, at Evansville. Then we go to, here's a 2-game stretch on Thanksgiving weekend, home game with Oklahoma coming to town. Then we turn around and go to Auburn, which obviously we beat Auburn last year. We got games with Bethune and North Carolina A&T. Then I believe it's at Orange Bowl Classic where we have Florida State on a Saturday, Northern Alabama after that. And then, Mike, December 30th, Michigan comes to Addition, whatever, Financial Arena, whatever we call that thing. So a decent non-con, Miami, Oklahoma, Auburn, Florida State, and Michigan. Those are 5 pretty good teams. I think those are 5, at least 3 of those teams I know made the tournament last year. A pretty decent non-con for the basketball program.
Yep. And the first thing I do when I see the schedule is which ones line up with the football and how does that affect you? So I saw they're at Miami. I was like, oh, maybe I can go down and check that out. It's on a Saturday. It's the same day as the SMU game. So we're going to have to check the tip-off time and kickoff times on that thing. Maybe that could work out to be a cool UCF day. Go to the basketball game, come back, watch the football game, see how that works out. The Oklahoma game is at home the day after the Black Friday Cal game. So you can make a nice weekend out of that. You have your Thanksgiving dinner, then you come, you watch the football game, you stick around for a day, you watch Oklahoma. That could be a fun one. The next weekend, if we're in the home championship game at home, then you get the next day you got Bethune at home. So that could be a fun weekend. The December 18th against FSU in Sunrise down here in Fort Lauderdale, I will be at that one. You can already mark that one down. That was our biggest win of the year last year, was against Florida State. They're going to be out for revenge. That should be a good matchup. The Michigan game, we have to be out for revenge because they beat us up badly last year. But this year's game, a home game, December 30th, you know what game's also December 30th? The Peach Bowl. So that could be an interesting day in UCF land. And if you really want to dream, the next day is the 31st, the Orange Bowl, the Cotton Bowl in the playoffs. I mean, who knows at this point? The Fiesta Bowl wouldn't be until January 1st if you had to make a trip out to Arizona. So you can catch both of those. Michigan, though, a very good team. Elite 8 last year, and they were in the championship game in 2018. So very, very strong program over there.
Yeah, that Thanksgiving weekend, that's actually my birthday weekend too. So that's a nice little double dip potential. Cows in Oklahoma. if you've never been down to the Orange Bowl Basketball Classic, it's actually a pretty cool thing. I think, Mike, you and I went there that one year. I used to go every year. We used to go to the ADT Club where you got you paid a little bit extra money, but you got like underneath garage parking, and they had like food stations set up. They had booze that was essentially kind of built into the price. It was always a good event because it's a doubleheader, so it's 2 games back to back. So you can stay for like 5-6 hours and eat and drink yourself into a coma, which was fantastic. And then obviously that Michigan game, depending on the football schedule too, it's a couple days before the New Year's Day, so you get up there, you can still get time to get back, Mike. That one might be one that I can even make myself take a trip down there for on that random Thursday if I take off work. I'd love to make that Orange Bowl Classic too, because that's again I loved going to those things. Those were a lot of fun.
That's right. The other game of the Orange Bowl Classic is always the Gators. I want to say it's the Cows. Is it the Cows or like FAU maybe?
I believe it's the Cows versus the Gators, yeah.
So that could be a fun atmosphere in that building that day. Those 4 fan bases all crammed in there. You got us, the Gators, the Noles, the Cows. There may be some fist flying around it in Sunrise that day.
Fisticuffs.
Things get ugly. Yeah, but the cool thing is, I think the UCF game is probably the early game, right? So we win that one, and you sit back and you relax, and you have a few beers, and you laugh at the Cows get destroyed by the Gators. It could be a very fun day.
Yeah, again, it's always a good time. Again, you get 2 games for the price of 1, so you can't beat that. I'm actually looking it up right now to see if they have that those schedule times announced. I don't know that they do here. The game. Let's see what we got here. I don't know if they have those game times.
I want to say they're usually like around 2 and 4:30 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's never really a late game.
Yeah, I always remember it being a kind of an earlier game. Yeah, they have UCF and Florida State, and then the Bulls take on the Gators. So I don't know which one's first. That's the way they're at least reading it on the website. So who the heck knows? Either way, it's a good time. It's 2 games for the price of 1. If you like college basketball and you got nothing to do on a Saturday, and that's in a sneaky weekend because that's probably right around the start of bowl season. So if anything, you're only missing the Meineke Car Care Bowl or something that day. So it's a sneaky good time to catch out some hoops. Obviously, we'll cover all this in greater detail as we get closer to basketball season and previewing what the squad will look like. But Mike, let's take our little break here, and then coming up one of the annual events around here, the Sons of UCF, the preseason Sonnies. We will give out our predictions for our player award winners. I don't know how much of this we ever really get right, but it's fun to think about and try anyway. So don't go anywhere. Preseason Sonnies are back, baby. Only on the Sons of UCF.
This is UCF head football coach Gus Malzahn, and you should listen to the Sons of UCF like your hair is on fire. Go Knights and charge on.
I should have gotten more dramatic music, Mike. We need like an Oscars-themed music here for the Sonnies Part 2. If you missed Part 1, check back 2 weeks ago. We did kind of like a prop bet situation on what we thought might take place. But this is down to the nitty-gritty, Mike. These are the big ones. These are the big awards. These are the player-specific trophies. We have a few different categories we're going to go through. And we will tell you who we think is going to win. Anybody's open, so sometimes we send these out to you all as a group in a survey style. But for Mike and I, any options are available to you to select on the categories, Mike. And it's relatively pretty simple. So let's start off here. We'll start off with a big one. Offensive MVP, and for this one, I'd like us to remove Dillon Gabriel because I think we all know that he's probably in most cases going to be the offensive MVP. So let's just assume that he's in his own category as like the team MVP for what he does. So he is not eligible to become the offensive MVP, Mike. So if I remove him from the equation, I need your surefire prediction on UCF's offensive MVP in 2021.
You kind of sneak attacked me here on this one because I was for sure going to go with Dillon Gabriel.
Of course you were.
I had all my stats lined up here, ready to go. But now I got to call an audible here. That's fine. So you know what I'm going to do? The last couple years, and last year, as a matter of fact, I think we all expected it to be Dillon Gabriel. And then I think it ended up being Marlon Williams, right? I think we agreed at the end of the year Marlon was the MVP offensively. So I think that could be the case again here this year. This time, Jalen Robinson, Flash, the guy that has the most experience with Dylan now, coming off last year. They have a nice relationship going. I can see him having a big season this year, putting up some big touchdown numbers, and we know the speed that he possesses. He can score from anywhere. So give me Flash as the offensive MVP this year.
Ooh, that's a solid pick, Mike. There's a lot of interesting candidates, right? You think about the receiving core. You just mentioned Flash as an option. Ryan O'Keefe, I think we expect he'll have a big year, but maybe he's a candidate for another award down the line here. Brandon Johnson, the transfer from Tennessee, maybe he's in line for a big year. We don't quite yet know what to expect from the running backs. It could be by committee. Obviously, we know that R.J. Harvey is injured. Montavious Thompson not with the program now. So Isaiah Bowser, Mark Anthony Richards, Johnny Richardson, Damaris Good. We don't know if any of those guys are going to get enough carries to be that guy. Then you think about the tight ends. Jake Hescock, is he going to get enough run to put up the award? I don't think that's going to happen either, Mike. So when you kind of break it down, the options are kind of limited. And so that's where you got to wonder, who will be that potential MVP if it's not Dylan Gabriel, right? I think you're onto something with Jalen Robinson. I suspect he'll be one of the guys that leads the team in catches. But obviously Heupel had a lot of different route trees than maybe you're going to see under Gus Malzahn. So I think Jalen is a really good option. But I guess for sake of going different than you, I'm going to go with Isaiah Bowser as my offensive MVP. And again, this could be one of those cold, old takes exposed situations because he may never get any carries. I don't know. But I think going into pre-injury of R.J. Harvey and even pre-Montavious Thompson, I think we suspected that he would be kind of like your goal line vulture touchdown guy, right? And so if that's the case, and he's going to be the guy we're relying on to punch it in from close yardage, and now he's on pace to get even more carries, I think that he may be the guy who ends up making some of the big plays, some of the tough yards we need, some of the big runs that we need. Obviously, I don't suspect that he's a speedster of any sort, but I think he might be a good every down kind of solid, sturdy back for us. So I have no idea if this is going to work out or not, but give me Isaiah Bowser. I never thought I'd say this one as our offensive MVP.
Wow, that comes as a little surprise. When you started off going the way you were talking, I thought you were going to come back to an offensive lineman, somebody like Matt Lee.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know how we can judge that as fans. We don't really watch the offensive line as closely. So, but Bowser is going to have a big role on this team, man. He's going to get the first shot, it looks like, in the opening game. Mark Anthony Richards, too, and Johnny Richardson are going to get plenty of carries to start the year. So, interesting pick. I'll take my chances with Flash. You take Bowser.
All right, let's go to the defense. Defensive MVP, right? Obviously, this one's a little bit harder, easier, whatever you want to call it, because there's no Dylan Gabriel, at least statistically on the defensive side, Mike. I suspect I know where you might go here. Your defensive MVP for 2021 is who?
You already know where I'm going to go with this one. I have to. I've been gushing over this guy for the last few months now, ever since he came over. El Gato Grande, Big Cat, BKB, Big Cat Bryant. He is a captain on this team now, the leader of the defense. A defense that is in bad need of some help and improvement from last year. Ranked, 120? We were 120th or 123rd ranked defense last year.
123, I believe.
Yikes. How many teams are there total?
129.
130? Oh, my goodness. So we need this guy. This is a guy that we've been looking for the last couple of years to get after the quarterback. He can do everything. He can stuff the run. And all that, of course, is going to help the whole defense, help the secondary. He's got some big game experience, this guy. He's been playing in the SEC, playing against Alabama and the big boys. So he brings some swagger back to this defense that I think we've been missing probably since Shaquem. And it brings some confidence back to this defense. And I think he can be a vocal leader on this team. I'm really looking forward to watching this guy in the black and gold.
6'5", 245-pound defensive end feels like a problem. Like that's a really good pick. Obviously, we know his pedigree. We know what he's done in his time, and if he can stay healthy and on the field, I think he could absolutely be a problem. That's a darn good pick. Again, on the spirit of trying to maybe go a little bit different than you, I have two names I'm debating between here, and I'll talk them out to you here. One is Khalia Davis. Khalia Davis, a guy who did not play last season, opted out. But in the season he had in 19, though, was pretty darn special. And he's a guy now who's got some help around him, right? He's going to have a big guy next to him, Ricky Barber. You just mentioned Big Cat on one side. I imagine Tremont Morris-Brash on the other side, if not Stefan Zayas. And so I think you're going to see Khalia Davis not going to get a ton of double teams. I think he's going to get some one-on-one opportunities. And we know he can definitely stop the run. If he can get some pressure on the quarterback, I think he could really be disruptive. The challenge with interior D linemen is he might not have like these eye-popping stats, right? He may only have 25, 30 tackles, but he may have 5, 10, 15 tackles for loss. He may have 8, 9, 10 sacks, right? And so I think he's interesting because I think he definitely plugs the middle and gives us at least some more dominant line play. I'm also looking at Devad Wilson. He's going to make a move into the back half of the secondary, so he's going to be in that safety spot. Obviously, UCF has had a lot of really good safeties the last couple of seasons under different defensive coordinators, mind you. But you think all the way back to Kyle Gibson was back there. Obviously, we had Richie Grant, we had Aaron Robinson, who obviously floated around. I think Devad Wilson, we saw him play a little bit. I think he forced a fumble in the Boca Bowl. So he's a guy that I think has has the ability potentially to be a playmaker back there. So I'm going to go more, though, with Devad as my choice, even though I just gave you a pretty good case for Khalia. I think he may have the ability to make some more of those game-breaking, game-changing type of plays. I think Khalia may be the more consistent down-in and down-out player between the two of them, but I think Devad's going to have the chance to make some game-breaking, game-changing style plays back there. We need a leader in that secondary. He's back there. Derek Gaines is back there, but we need someone to kind of step up and be that leader. I think that may be Devad Wilson. I'm going to go with him as my defensive MVP.
I like what I saw at Wilson last year. He showed some flashes where he looks like he can be an explosive player out there and make those big interceptions and turnovers when we need them. So I like that pick. He's an athlete, and he's going to be trusted, I think, to cover in the slot, which is where you need a very athletic guy. Aaron Robinson did a great job the last couple of years. I think he's capable of doing it. So that's going to be the question with how Gus uses him. Is he going to use him there, or is he going to use him out on the outside as a shutdown corner? Well, what are the possibilities we have with these guys? And it's going to depend on what the other guys can do too. So I like the Khalia Davis pick. Maybe an unsung hero. Stuff in the run doesn't really get as much praise as some of these other guys at forcing turnovers and stuff. But I think I can roll with the Devad Wilson pick. I think that's a solid one.
All right, finally I got Mike on my side. All right, let's go. Let's skip to we'll skip the next one on the list that you have, Mike. Let's go offensive newcomer. So I define a newcomer, somebody who has not yet stepped foot on the field representing UCF. So maybe that's a person who transferred last year but had to sit out and didn't play. So somebody who's never played an actual down of football wearing a UCF uniform. That is our definition of a newcomer, Mike. So obviously a lot of options with the transfer portal stuff this offseason. Who do you have as your offensive newcomer for 2021?
Give me another captain. I use a captain on defense. Give me a captain on offense. Brandon Johnson.
Good one.
Receiver coming over from Tennessee. Local kid for me down here in Fort Lauderdale. He went to American Heritage High School. He had 79 catches for 969 yards in his career at Tennessee. He's got that SEC experience that we talked about. He's got some size with him, 6'2", 195 pounds. I think he's a good complement to the smaller, fast guys like Flash and O'Keefe. So we need somebody to be that security blanket for Dylan Gabriel. 2 years ago, it was Gabe Davis, right? Anytime Dylan was in trouble, he looked to Gabe. Last year, it seemed like it was Marlon Williams in a tough spot. Who's going to be the guy to go and make that tough catch in traffic? Who's going to be the guy that makes the catch on third downs when you need him? This, I think, is our guy. I think he's got the hands to do it. He's got the size to do it. Maybe he doesn't score as many touchdowns as Jalen Robinson, but I think he's going to be the dependable guy that we need. And is he willing to block? I think remember, receivers, they got to be able to block too and open up these holes for these other guys. I think he's capable of doing that too. Give me Brandon Johnson as an offensive newcomer. Nobody's really seen him do anything here yet, but I think he's going to have a big year.
Yeah, no block, no rock, right? Is that what they say? So For me, a newcomer, you would think I would then have to pick Isaiah Bowser because I just picked him as the MVP, but I'm going to disqualify him since he already won that award in my book. So he's already won that one. I just talked about the logjam at the running back spot and not knowing who we're going to see. The other name that's in the backfield there is Mark Anthony Richards. He's the other transfer running back that would be technically a new guy. We don't know what we're going to get out of him. You mentioned receivers, Mike. Obviously, there's a handful that have come in from a transfer portal. You picked one in Brandon Johnson. There's Nate Craig Myers. There's Jordan Johnson. He's the kid from Notre Dame who was in some books a 5-star recruit, Mike. Obviously, you've got the backup quarterback, Mikey Keene, potentially. Is he going to be a guy that gets some run? Who knows? I'm going to go a little bit more off the board, Mike. I don't know why. I think this guy is going to have a season. Give me Kadeem Robinson as my offensive newcomer. He is a guy who's coming in out of ASA College in New York, a JUCO guy. Mike, he's 6'2", 205. He's actually bigger than Brandon Johnson is. I think we've got the outside speed guy position really kind of shown up, right? With Jay Flash, with Ryan O'Keefe, with Amari Johnson. I think we've got that spot sewn up. I think that opens up the field for a guy like a Brandon Johnson, like a Kadeem Robinson. Big guys who can run, who can make catches over the middle of the field, make a tough slant type catch, hold on to the ball, maybe make a break and go the distance. Kadeem Robinson hasn't played a ton of football, so he's obviously a little bit less mature from a playing standpoint than Brandon Johnson. But I'm going to roll the dice and say he's going to have something this year that's going to be big. So give me Kadeem Robinson, another flyer here as my offensive newcomer.
All right. Now, that one kind of takes me by surprise. We have a lot of Robinsons and Johnsons on this team. It's hard to keep track.
Yes.
Yeah. Richardson's, all the sons that we've talked about, the sons of UCF. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't heard. Kadeem Robinson's one that you haven't heard as much about.
No.
Compared to these other guys. So kind of a sleeper pick out of you there.
Yeah, he played a bunch during the spring game. Again, that's a spring game. Nate Craig Myers was not there yet, but I guess I'm just looking at size, and I'm wondering, if Gus has got to find some size in the field. Nate Craig Myers is a big dude too. It's 6'2", 205. So he was the other name I really kind of debated, but he came in late, but he would know Gus's system, and so that's the other name I really looked at and said, okay, does this kid have a chance to maybe take some of that spot? A veteran guy. This is his third program, so he's one of those super senior kind of guys. Does he have a shot? So I was between Kadeem and Nate Craig Myers. I'm going to take a flyer, though. It's one of those things where I'll either be a genius or an idiot. So Kadeem Robinson was my pick, Mike. On the offensive side, defensive side, same philosophy, the newcomer award. Who's the guy that, again, has not stepped foot yet on the field representing UCF that you think will have a big year?
Give me Ricky Barber.
Yeah, good one.
Ricky Barber coming over from Western Kentucky, 6'3", 290. It's a big boy. He's going to be in that rotation with Khalia Davis and Cam Good in the middle of the defensive line. He had 51 tackles last year with 4 sacks. He was a freshman All-American. He's got some history with our new defensive line coach, Kenny Martin, who was over at Western Kentucky with him. So I like to see what this kid can do. I think he's got a lot of potential, and I think he can make a big impact right away.
Yeah, I figured you'd go there. That's a good one. So here are the options I was kicking around. Obviously, Ricky Barber is one. We've got the linebacker that we finally heard from this weekend, Bryson Armstrong. He's a guy, Mike, that people, at least T-Will has been asked about a bunch of different times, and you don't really know what to make of him. You got Marco Domio, a defensive back. He's a senior. Again, he's a kid who's played at Auburn. Again, we don't quite yet know the depth charts, and I think that's the challenge with this is we don't really know which of these guys are going to get a lot of run yet. And we haven't quite ever seen Jaden Francois play on the field. He walked around on the sidelines in a uniform, but again, we have no idea if he's going to get a chance to play or not. So I think I feel comfortable saying that we know. I think we're going to see Bryson Armstrong on the field at least. And I think Marco Domio would be the second guy I'd pick. So I'm going to go with Bryson Armstrong as my newcomer. Again, he's the transfer linebacker out of Kennesaw State, 300-plus tackles in his career there for 4 years, 5'11", 210. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but T-Will just referred to him as a football player, and he can just make plays in the football field. So I'm going to take another flyer. I'm going to go Bryson Armstrong as my defensive newcomer.
Yeah, sometimes it's not the size of the guy. So Zach Thomas was not the biggest linebacker, right? And he turned out to be a pretty good player. So interesting to see what this kid can do. We don't know much about him. Same thing that goes with the guy that came over from BYU.
Hercules
What's his
Latu.
name? There you go, Hercules Latu. I always forget that kid's name for some reason.
I know you do.
So, the linebacker spots are up for grabs too, in my opinion. I know Gilliard's been there for a while and Baptiste's been there for a while, but they haven't been, the greatest linebackers. So if these guys can come in and take their job, then I'm all for it. Whoever performs the best gets to play.
Yeah, and that's the thing, Mike. Is you got to think. At least Bryson Armstrong has some experience under his belt. How he fits in the system here, I don't think we know yet. Gilliard's been there, been okay in his time at UCF. Obviously, I think Jean Baptiste and Bethune got kind of trial by fire, getting thrown into it last year. You don't know what you're going to get a Hercules Latu. Will we see any of the young Arkansas guys? Quade Mosier, will he get an option to play this year? We don't know yet if we're going to see any of those guys that are out there. So it's kind of the unknown, and that's why I guess I'll roll the dice and say maybe we see something out of Bryson Armstrong, but it's hard to tell until we get depth charts, which obviously aren't probably coming for another couple of days, Mike. All right, here's a fun one for us. This is the Marlon Williams Breakout Player of the Year Award. If you're wondering why we call it that, for the 3 straight years in this show, Mike, I picked Marlon Williams as my breakout player, and by and golly, I think I finally got that right last year. So in his honor, the Marlon Williams Breakout Player of the Year Award. Here's how I define that, Mike, at least my definition of it, would be a guy we've seen play at UCF. Maybe he's been on the field, maybe he's been a backup, maybe he's made a couple of plays here and there, but you think is poised to just have a giant year, similar to what we saw from Marlin last year, where he was a really good receiver, and all of a sudden last year he became, to your point, maybe the top player on offense. So your breakout player, Mike, for 2021, could be offense or defense. Who do you got?
Yeah, I've been going back and forth with this one. I wasn't sure where I was going to go. I wanted to go Amari Johnson. I did, but last minute changed my mind because of the opportunities given to this guy, because of Bentavious Thompson not going to be around, because of RJ Harvey injury, Johnny Richardson. This is his year to shine. I'm going with Johnny. I think he could be the lightning to the Isaiah Bowser thunder. I think they can make a nice combination there. And he's going to be out of the doghouse from last year. Last year, we saw the fumble against Tulsa and kind of went into the he-upple doghouse. I think he's got a clean slate now with Malzahn and his staff in here. Richardson's electric, man. I've seen highlights of this kid going back years now from high school. He is a very fun player to watch. He can break tackles. He's elusive. He can run. I really like to see what he can do now, given the opportunity to get more carries on a regular basis.
That's a good choice. He was on my list as well, Mike. I've got 3 guys I'm kind of deciding between here, so I'm going to talk this out loud for you and everybody else here. First on the list was Ryan O'Keefe. I think he got a ton of balls thrown his way in the spring game. We saw the potential he had last year. He made a couple of game-breaking plays, but obviously he was behind Marlin and Trey and Jacob, so he didn't get a ton of time on the field, maybe not as much as he's going to get this year. So I think he's going to be in a position to maybe make some plays. But I'm looking on the defensive side, Mike, and there are 2 guys whose names I think we keep hearing about. And one of the things that I do want to, I'll pause quickly and kind of explain to people, is this year for the media availabilities for the players, the way that the UCF's worked it previously is you would get information in advance as to which players would be coming out to the podium for you to talk to. Sounds like this year what they're doing is they're basically just picking guys and bringing them to the podium. My suspicion, Mike, is they're not going to pick guys that they don't think are going to have any opportunity of playing or that aren't going to be a big part of what UCF's going to do. 2 guys have gotten either a podium or even a preseason media day platform. And those 2 guys are a guy that we had a snippet of last week, and his full interview is out there on YouTube now. That's Devontae Brown. And then out of nowhere, we saw Quadric Bullard get a podium after practice session. And some people are saying that he's playing really well. So those are 2 defensive backs. And we know that's a position of need. We know, obviously, that there's probably a logjam of guys back there. So with 0 information at all, just judging off that alone, judging off the fact that we're going to need the opportunity for guys to step up, I'm going to go Devontae Brown, defensive back, sophomore out of Plantation, out of your neck of the woods, Mike. I'm going to have him as my breakout player of the year, the Marlon Williams breakout player of the year. I think this kid, if I remember him correctly, he's the guy who chased down Johnny Richardson at the spring game after he had a long run. Again, he's definitely getting some media time, some attention time. I read into that he's playing well. We know the corners were really young last year, and both those guys had an opportunity. Amari Maxwell, I don't know if he's long for the corner spot. We don't know who's playing that. Roll the dice for me. Give me Devontae Brown as my breakout player.
It'd be great to see. It'd be great to see a defensive guy come out and be this guy. I think it's harder because the offensive guys get more glory, you get more touches and more screen time, I guess. So it's easier for us at the end of the year to say, hey, a guy like Johnny Richardson or Amari Johnson or one of these offensive guys had that breakout season. But if Brown could come in and get a few interceptions, make some big plays at some key times, it's very possible. And I would love to be a defensive guy because that just means defense has gotten that much better.
Yeah, my thinking and my hope on this one is that, if he comes up with 4 interceptions on the year, right, and a couple of pass defenses and, shuts down his side of the field, I mean, that's a huge benefit to UCF. I mean, we saw what good cornerback play can do for UCF. Obviously, sometimes we debate ourselves as DBU. Tay Gowan for his 1 year at UCF was really solid. I don't know if I would call him the breakout player that year, but he was a really solid defender. And so there's opportunity, I think, on that side of the ball. He's a guy that played a little bit last year. He got a lot of run towards the end. I think that experience helps. So I'm gonna roll the dice, Mike. I'm gonna go off the board, roll the dice, and maybe I'll be a fool. Who knows? Next category is freshman of the year, impact freshman. So we, obviously a lot of transfers coming in. So we suspect they'll get a lot of time. But Mike, is there a freshman? It could be on offense or it could be on defense that you think has the ability to make an impact this year?
This one was a little harder for me to go through it and see because I don't know how many of these guys are going to get a lot of playing time. I'm going with Charlie Browder.
You picked my guy. Yeah.
6'7", 260 pounds, just as big as Jake Hescock, maybe even bigger than Hescock. Is that possible? Because we know how huge Hescock is. This guy, I think, is actually bigger. So, a big target in the red zone is a possibility. He had a very good spring game. The tight end now has new life under Gus Malzahn because we know under Heupel they never used the tight end very much. So anything is possible now. We don't even know what to expect. What is his blocking like? That's a big question. Tight end position blocking is probably more important than anything else. So this kid is a athlete though. He played high school. He played offense and defense. So I think he's a good athlete. And he's a smart kid, apparently, because he's already made the dean's list during the spring semester. Jeez. So I like that about him. He can pick up the offense and know exactly where he's supposed to be, knows assignments. I like that part about him. So Charlie Browder, impact freshman for this year.
That was my pick. That was my choice. Again, so I'll try not to copy what you had. Here are the names I had written down. So here are the guys I was thinking about. Obviously, we have Titus Atamalala. He is the freshman receiver out of Hawaii, 4-star guy. He has a connection with Dylan Gabriel. But we know the receiver spot is going to be kind of log jammed. So will Titus 6'1", 175, will he have a chance to get on the field this year with all the other receivers? I think that's the part that I just don't know about. A name that Devad Wilson brought up recently in one of his press availabilities that he said was playing really well in the secondary was a kid named Brandon Adams, true freshman out of Atlanta, 6'3", 180. Again, as a true freshman with a lot of the other guys now getting experience, I just don't know how much time, how much run he's going to be able to get into playing. Another guy that he's got a lot of size, Mike. I just have no idea what kind of player he is. Kadeem Leonard is a 6'3", 230-pound linebacker. I don't know what kind of playing time he might get if he gets any. We just talked about the linebackers not necessarily being a position of strength for us. Does he get a chance? What about young Mikey Keene? If there's a need for a quarterback to come in at any point in time, maybe he serves as the backup. And if that's the case, does he get some run? Those are the guys I consider. But I'm going to go with, again, kind of off the board here, I'm going to go with Anthony Williams, the running back, true freshman running back out of Lake Brantley in Orlando. 6 foot, 215. And really my reasoning for this pick, Mike, is obviously we already know we're kind of thin at the running back spot. All it's going to take is a guy to get dinged up for a game. Maybe a guy has a fumble and doesn't come in. We talked about some of these guys. He's a bigger guy, again, at 6 foot. So is he going to be able to maybe take that Bowser, Mark Anthony Richards type role? I know Damaris Good's back there as well. So maybe this kid gets a couple of carries, gets a couple of games in, and makes a couple of plays here and there just based on the depth we have at running back. So I'm going to go with Anthony Williams as my freshman impact guy.
That's a good pick. I think he will get some opportunities at some point, whether it's maybe we'll get to see him early in the year, maybe some mop-up duty against Bethune, in games like that. But and if he can prove himself in those spots, maybe he gets more trust out of Gus, and he gets a lot more playing time as the season goes on. Not somebody that you're thinking is in the top rotation of running backs for this first game against Boise, but somebody that I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year he's got a good amount of carries in his pocket. Yeah,
I think to me, Charlie Browder was the answer, right? Because I think he will have an opportunity to get some plays in there. I think we saw him in the spring game. I think Hescock is more of a blocking tight end. I don't know if Browder is considered more of a pass catching tight end, but so if you want to use him in that weapon, that could work out. I think he may end up being the correct answer, but we will see, Mike. The other two questions we always ask, and I think I know your answer, but we'll do it quickly. Number of losses you think UCF will suffer this year. If you heard last week's episode, Mike, you were firmly in the 0 camp. I suspect you are still in that 0 camp.
Well, they haven't done anything between last week and this week for me to say we're going to lose any games. So I have to stick with that for now. Yes, 0.
I'm gonna go with 1, just because just to be a little different. I feel like there's gonna be something at some point. It's hard to expect that a new coaching staff, some injuries that we're facing, that there's not a trip up at some point. I'm not saying it's gonna be detrimental or it's gonna be season ending, but I'm gonna go with at least 1 loss, Mike. And then our last question, and I framed this up by game. So in terms of thinking about this in multiple choice, Mike, the last game UCF will play in 2021 will be at the Cows. Will it be the AAC championship game? Will it be a bowl game? Will it be a New Year's 6 game? Will it be a national semifinal? Or will it be a national championship? The last game UCF will play in 2021, Mike, will be where?
Well, I don't think they're going to let us in the playoff even if we are undefeated.
Okay.
So I can throw out the semifinal and the final game just because college football sucks. So give me a New Year's 6. Give me us winning the conference, and that's going to, I guess, Fiesta, maybe possibly the Peach, but probably Fiesta. And, I mean, I don't know who we're playing, but give me a win in there, too.
This is one I will not go different from you. I will agree with you. I'm going to go New Year's 6 as our option. I think even if we have 1 loss, I still think we can make ourselves the top group of 5 school. Obviously, there's a lot of different schools out there that maybe vie for that, but I think we can position ourselves to still win the championship in the AAC and still get to New Year's 6 bowl with maybe 1 trip up along the way. So give me, as long as it's not Cincinnati, I guess, unless they lose 2 games. But anyway, give me a New Year's 6 bowl as our prediction, Mike. So those are the preseason Sundays. Again, more of the player-focused edition. If I have some time, I'll send this out in a survey. I know those are tough because I'm asking you guys to click on a bunch of things, and it's not as easy as just doing the Twitter poll, but there's a lot of options here. So maybe we'll throw those out. Or if you want to just tweet at Mike and I, if you have your selections, we'll be happy to hear what you have. And again, we can play this one back. And at the end of the year, Mike, it's always fun to see how wrong we were. Because obviously there's some names on here. I took some flyers, and so I guess we'll see where we end up down the road, Mike. But these are always fun if you ask me.
Yep, and it just means that we're that much closer to football season. So we do this right before the season starts, and now it's all out of the way. And we only got 1 more to go, and we'll be previewing, I guess, Boise State game next week, right?
Let's worry about this week's episode before we get to that, Mike, because up next is a guy who had some big plays in his time at UCF. He's also a very large human being, and we were glad to have him join the show. Don't go anywhere. We have Paul Carrington coming up next.
This is UCF Athletic Director Terry Mohajri, and in my spare time, when I'm not on TikTok, I'm listening to Adam and Mike on the Sons of UCF. Go Knights and charge on.
All right, we've had a lot of large human beings on the show, Mike. We had Terrell Troop on. Obviously, he's a big dude. But I think this may be outside of, I don't know, this might be the tallest person we've ever had on the show. I guess I have to go back. AJ Davis with basketball team was on. He may be like 6'6" or 6'7". But this guy may be the tallest guy we've ever had on the show, Mike. And so, but it doesn't mean that he wasn't swift and nimble based on the career total of sacks and tackles for a loss he had. He played at UCF from 2002 2005. Also came back and served a stint on the coaching staff as well. So Mike and I are happy to welcome in Paul Carrington this evening to the show. First off, Paul, thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Absolutely. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on, guys. And, to y'all's point, it's always good to remember the old guys because as time goes on, we kind of feel a little forgotten. And, the toughest thing about an athlete when you're done playing, losing a little bit of that identity. So to be able to get on a show like this and to talk ball and reminisce and, talk about the current things is always it's always good.
Yeah, we agree. And so let's start off in the very beginning. You are a kid out of Georgia, and you find yourself coming to Orlando to play for the then Golden Knights. How did you wind up at UCF? What was that recruitment process like for you?
Yeah, so unfortunately, and it even continued when I was on staff with Coach O'Leary, people do not pay attention to Savannah, Georgia. I don't know why. I guess because there's so much talent in Atlanta. It's mainly just spot recruited. So I was one of those sleeper guys. And, granted, the fact that I was 6'7", like 215, most people probably looked at me like, oh, he's a point guard out there trying to play defensive end. So it was a guy, he actually ended up coming back to UCF. You guys remember Coach Zoe, Lorenzo Costantini?
Sure.
Yeah, the D-line coach. So it was kind of one of those instances where he came to the school. I happened to be in the weight room lifting weights, and he went in and saw me doing power cleans, doing some squats, and he was just like, whoa, okay, we've got something here. And, he took a chance on me, signed me, and, even getting down to UCF initially early on, it was kind of like, man, why did we sign this guy? He's tall, he's lanky, not, a little bit athletic, but, still – got some things to work on. And throughout my career I never considered myself an athlete at all. I still really don't. The only reason I had success with the game is just by working at it.
Well, back then, UCF was known as more of maybe an offensive school, if I can say that. I mean, Mike Kruzek obviously was the head coach at the time. He had the kind of the now, I guess, the now famous, but then kind of a unique air raid style offense. Obviously, Dante Culpepper had been there previous years. Ryan Schneider was there. He was lighting things up. As a defensive guy, did that concern you at all, that it was more of an offensive juggernaut? Was that any part of your decision to come to UCF?
No, it really wasn't. I kind of just looked at, and it's even what I told recruits, like in college, like first and foremost, make sure they have a major that you want to study, that you want to get a degree in, and not just one, maybe 4 or 5 that you're interested in studying, because, freshmen often switch majors a ton. And then I wanted it to be close to home, and really I just wanted it to be a good up-and-coming program. And really the relationship with the coaches was the fourth reason. So those were the main reasons that I chose it. And yeah, I did go to a game. I actually went to the Virginia Tech game back in 2000 when everybody thought, hey, Michael Vick's going to play, but he ended up not playing. Was able to kind of see how the offense runs, how the defense is. And yeah, I did notice, like, okay, this is more of a air raid offense. Defense is probably going to be on the field a ton, but, it's tough to be in that situation as a defensive player, but it just means you're going to get more reps, more opportunities to sack the quarterback, more opportunities to play. So definitely happy that I did it. And, the rest is history at this point.
That was an ugly game, the Virginia Tech one. I think Lee Suggs ran for like 400 yards against us. I'm surprised.
Yeah, it was like 45-21, something like that. But
you still wanted to come here anyway, so that's cool.
I did. I definitely did.
Take us back to that freshman year. What was the biggest adjustment you had to make coming out of high school?
So in high school, I was 6'7", 215, the offensive tackle. If he was lucky, he was probably a 230, 240-pound dude. I would just run right around him, no issues. And then I get down to three-point stance, and I got Steve Edwards looking at me. And it's like, oh my gosh, this dude's a beast. And not only was he a beast, he was strong and he had feet like a ballerina. So I would say just the size and just the fact that you can't rely on your speed, on your height, on your length, on your weight anymore. You've got to work at it. You got to work harder than the guy in front of you. That was the biggest transition. And that was right at the tail end when they were still doing two-a-days. And I remember we had a week straight of two-a-days. And then I think, I'm in the South Georgia heat where I was born and raised. I should be okay. But, the heat in Florida doesn't even compare to the heat in Georgia. So it was definitely a transition. And not even that, but just being a country kid from South Georgia, and then you get submerged into the culture in Orlando, Florida, where it's a melting pot. You got everybody from all over. So it was definitely a grace period, I would say. It took some getting used to, but definitely grew a lot my first year and was able to develop and make the transition as I went along.
Did you feel you needed to bulk up more when you first got there? And how hard is that to do when you're practicing twice a day in that heat?
It was definitely hard. And, the genetics in my family were all just tall and lanky people. Nobody in my family's ever really weighed over 200 pounds except my brother and I. And so that was definitely a challenge. I mean, I had to constantly eat, constantly drink a ton of water. It was a battle for sure throughout my career. And even, the routine, I would get up to like 265 in the off season. And then by the end of training camp, I'd be down to like 250. And then, I can remember towards the end of the season, it was funny, like my senior year, like we were weighing in. It was like right after the title game where we lost to Tulsa. I was like 241. And the strength coaches were like, yeah, there was a scout here today asking about your weight. We lied to him, told him you were 255. I'm like, I appreciate that, fellas. Thank you. But, it was a constant battle. But when I got to the NFL, it was a lot easier to hold the weight and maintain the weight just because they don't practice as hard in the NFL. So
let's go on the field for UCF that season. They lose the first three, but then you guys rally to win 7 of your next 9. And people forget back in 2002, that was our first season in the MAC conference. So we joined the MAC for a quick little stint there while you were at UCF. How energized do you think the team was by that result that first year in the MAC? Was there guys who thought maybe this would be an easy conference? You guys would kind of run through things, or I guess what was the attitude like after that first season being largely a success?
Yeah, I think it gave us confidence because for the first time in program history, we had something to play for. There's a title game there. There's bowl games that you're involved in that you can make. And I think everybody looks back to like Dante's senior year when they went like 9-2 and they get snubbed for a bowl bid. And I'm sorry, like I know it's transition where pretty much if you're over 500, you're going to make a bowl game. But just think about being a Division I program and going 9-2 and then you don't play in the postseason, just how disappointing that is. So I think it was just part of that, stepping stone with how the program progressed. And guys were definitely excited. I mean, the potential was there. And, Ryan Schneider was playing amazing football. We had a lot of offensive weapons, had good defensive players as well. And it really set up the expectations after 2002 going into 2003. And then we all remember and know what happened then.
Yeah, we'll get there. Were you guys disappointed, though, in 2002? I mean, you technically would have been bowl eligible at 7-5. Now to your point today, if you win 6 games, there's the Meineke Tire Bowl or the Car Fox Bowl, right? But back then it wasn't really the same. Were you guys disappointed in 2002 that you didn't get a chance to get that first bowl bid for UCF?
Yeah, I think we were, and it always comes down to that one game, and I think the game I would have to look at is Marshall. Yeah. We played in Huntington first game ever, and it was a back and forth, and I think we only lost that game by like a touchdown or maybe a field goal, if I remember correctly. It was a lot of back and forth. And I remember in that game, that was before instant replay, like Asante Samuel, I remember him definitively, like, clear cut right in front of the ref, catching an interception on the sideline, and the ref, like, waved it off and called it incomplete. So, I would say there is disappointment, absolutely, but at the same time, it definitely I would say it definitely gave us confidence and, let us know, like, hey, we can compete in a conference after competing as an independent school for so long. So, for sure. Yeah,
that was 26-21 you guys lost that game.
26-21. You just Google it?
Yeah, just go. I have everything I need. If you do the show with Mike, he asked you random things, so I got to be ready to Google at a moment's notice.
No doubt. Looking up stats from 20 years ago, that's awesome.
Yeah, the 03 season started. I was pretty optimistic. I actually made the trip up to Virginia Tech for the opener.
Yeah.
There was that game where we were down 28-0 early, but then we stormed back, made it close, and then ended up losing that one. But that season, I mean, off to a bad start after that. We barely sneaked by FAU.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yep, and they're throwing into the end zone to win the game at the end. And
they were.
And then we have a couple of brutal losses later, and the season, and it's not good. We went 3-9 that year, and in the middle of the year, I think you were quoted as saying that we have about 10 cancers on this team, and the bad thing is a lot of them are starters. You said, how was that quote received in the locker room when you came out and said that?
Oh, they absolutely hated me. I was an outcast after that. They couldn't stand me. And here's the thing: what I was saying was true to an extent. I just didn't need to say it, at media day when I was getting interviewed. That should have been something that was probably dealt with internally. And I remember Kruzik brought me into his office and completely chewed me a new one after that. And it was not good. But I think you look back at that transition, and because Kruzik ended up getting let go later on, and then what Coach O'Leary was able to do when he came in. I do not wish anybody getting fired at all, but that transition needed to happen because we did have guys on the team that just weren't listening, weren't buying in. And I can remember back then, it was not uncommon to have about 20, 25 guys on academic probation, a bunch of guys going to student conduct, and you just think when things like that are going on off the field, it definitely transitions to the field. And I think that was the biggest issue with that season that year. There was a lack of discipline.
It's been almost 20 years now. You want to name some names on here? Give us some ratings.
I will plead the fifth.
All right. So we mentioned Cruz gets let go. He's fired there towards the end of the year. Was his team surprised when that happened? And what was the reaction like in the locker room?
I would say there was definitely a shock because you typically think as a player, if that's going to happen, it's probably going to happen at the end of the season. But for that to happen with 2 or 3 games left, you quickly change the leadership. And then after that, you've got your interim head coach standing in front of you, and now you have to prepare to play 2 or 3 more games. And I want to say after that, I think we have Ben Roethlisberger coming into town. I think we might have played Marshall, then Miami, Ohio. So, we had 2 good teams that we still had to prepare for and play. So again, you just I think the thing the sport of football teaches you more than anything in life is you quickly adapt to something and you move on and you deal with it, next play. So, there was a shock, but, we quickly moved on, tried to prepare, and tried to win the remaining games as best we could.
Yeah, you're right. It was Marshall and then Miami of Ohio, who was ranked 15th at the time there. Well, then the calendar turns, and the next season comes about, 2004. And at some point in that season, in that year at least, Paul, the door swings open to a locker room, and George O'Leary walks in as your new head coach. What was your first impression when you got to meet the famous White Horse?
So I knew and had heard the horror stories living in Georgia about Georgia Tech, and I actually went to a Georgia Tech camp my junior year. And here is what's fascinating about George O'Leary. So I went to that Georgia Tech camp back in '99, and here we are, 2004. We're at a recruiting dinner, and I sit down. I'm hosting a recruit, and he looks over at me. He goes, "You were at camp a few years ago, weren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, Georgia Tech." He goes, "Yeah, we remember you. We thought you were a little stiff. You were a good player, but don't worry, you got me now." and I'm just thinking, wow, this guy remembered me and he knows his stuff. And yeah, all the horror stories were confirmed. I think so. The other memory that sticks out is, typically the skill players would work out first, and then the linemen would come in later in the afternoon, work out after. So I got there a little early just to catch the tail end. And I can remember seeing Brandon Marshall throwing up and Mike Sims Walker cramping. They have to go give him an IV. And I'm like, okay, great. The 2 best athletes on the team are dying. What's about to happen to us as linemen? This is not going to be good. And gosh, we probably had, it was at least 30 scholarship players that quit before the season even started. I mean, it was a lot of attrition. And I mean, you look at the roster, the depth chart in 04, it's all freshmen and redshirt freshmen. So.
Yeah, we have had Coach on the show twice now, and he referenced, essentially having to come in and I think I don't know if he called it clean house, but obviously made a lot of changes. And you were impacted too. I mean, in a small way, you were a starter when that season started, and then somewhere through that early part, he moves you back into a reserve role. And obviously, you kind of work your way back into a starter role. Did that motivate you? Was that, you think, part of his tactic to motivate guys and obviously not really caring about your name or your stars, but who the best player was? Did that motivate you when you got kind of a quote unquote demotion earlier in the year?
It did, and that was probably a low point in the sport of football for me in my life, because we were 0-7, and here's the thing: I look back, like, I wasn't making any plays, I wasn't really getting in the backfield. I tackle for loss here and there, but I think I finished that year with 4 sacks maybe. So I wasn't making plays. So, like, as a coach, it's you got to put somebody else out there. You got to give somebody else an opportunity to start, and I would say it did motivate me, and I'll be honest, guys, there was a point, like, towards the end, I had already graduated, and I'm kind of thinking, like, do I come back my senior year? Should I give this another opportunity? And, I had a really good heart-to-heart with my dad, and it's kind of one of those conversations, like, Paul, if you go through life and you look back, you're going to have immense regret. And it's like I tell kids all the time, like, when I was particularly when I was there coaching, the kids, you always have that kid that come in, I don't love football anymore. This is hard. And I tell them, like, hey, when you're 40 years old and you're looking back at this point, are you going to be able to live with it, knowing that you quit and that you gave it up? And so I just kind of echoed that in my head, was like, you know what? I'm going to come back. I'm going to try to be a leader on this team. I'm going to try my best to change it. And I decided to, and had a great year in 2005 for sure.
Well, I read somewhere that in that 2004 season, it was a game, I don't know if you remember this, a game against Buffalo, so the 4th game of the year. We lost 48-20. And in the film session, allegedly, there were 2 or 3 opportunities that you had to just clean the quarterback's clock, and for whatever reason, you didn't take those opportunities. And it sounds like Coach O'Leary kind of laid into you, or definitely gave you some quote unquote constructive criticism at that. Do you remember that? Do you remember that film session?
I do. I missed like 4 sacks in that game, and again, that was another low point. It's like Buffalo, like, good gosh, I couldn't sack the Buffalo quarterback, and that's back when Buffalo was terrible. And it was, it was kind of one of those things. And I remember, Lance Thompson, who coached at UCF a few years, like, he walked in, he said, okay, guys, look up. We can only go up from here. We're at the bottom. Let's do it. So, yeah. But, yeah, I definitely remember that. There were many sessions that season where everybody got, their butts chewed, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would have blamed you if you had just decided to – you had already graduated, like you said, so not coming back –
Yeah, and there's even some players, like, I can remember several players where they weren't really starters, but they were contributors, and they graduated, and he'd be like, okay, well, you're done. Like, that was the other thing. Like, he didn't have to bring me back, but he allowed me to, which I was very grateful for. I was able to get 3/4 of the way done with a master's degree that last year, and then I was able to come back and finish it in 2010 after playing pro. So again, to get not 1 piece of paper from a prominent university, but 2 is definitely a big accomplishment.
So what were your goals coming into 2005? Obviously, the team still hadn't won a game in a while. Yeah. What about personally for you? What did you want to accomplish coming in that last year?
I would say one of the biggest transitions from my whole career to the last year is I didn't really set any personal goals. I remember my sophomore year, Brandon Helwig saying, how many sacks do you want to get this year? I'm like, my goal is 10. I ended up getting like 2. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to set any personal goals, but the team goal that year was to make a bowl game. We all kind of bought in. I remember we had a big, like, off-season meeting where there were no coaches. And really it was just, guys, we're going to do the right thing. We're going to do what the coaches ask. And whatever it is we have to do to make a bowl game, we're going to do it. Just win at all costs. And that was kind of the theme of the summer workouts. That was the motivation going into the year. And that's what we were able to do for sure.
Well, 05 starts. We dropped the first two. We dropped one in South Carolina, a closer game than I think people probably remember, 24-15. Then we lose at the Cows, which definitely sucks. Then Marshall comes to town. So this is obviously a big game and turns out to be a memorable game for a lot of reasons, some of them not, unfortunately, as positive. But for you made a huge play early in that game, forced fumble from Bernie Morris. What do you remember about that play? Can you take us back to that particular moment in time when you forced that fumble?
Yeah, so they came out, they just did a little dive play, and then I thought for sure, second and long, it's going to be a pass. And if you guys remember the play, it was a bootleg away from me. So the offensive line is coming towards me. I was on the right, and the quarterback's doing a bootleg fake and running the opposite direction. And I quickly just butted up with the tackle, got around him, and I saw that he was right there, and I saw my old teammate Chris Welsh had an angle on him. And it's amazing that I was able to process all of this so quickly because, football, you blink and, the guy's already run by or the ball's thrown. And I was like, okay, Chris has got the angle on him. If Chris misses him, he's going to be standing right there, and I'm going to be able to clean this dude's clock. and that's exactly what happened. He didn't see me coming, was able to get a good hit. The only thing is Keith Sholigan, he could have gotten a scoop and score, and then he decided to fall on it. So I would say the other thing about that play, it wasn't that I hit the quarterback and that we caused a fumble. Everybody gave Keith a hard time because it was dude, you're a nose guard. This is your one opportunity to get a touchdown, and you just fell on it. So, but yeah, definitely good play. Set the momentum. I think Brandon scored 3 plays later on the corner of the end zone, and then that kind of set the tone for the entire game. And we were able to finally, after 17 games, break the streak, which was very memorable for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, first off, you guys, really controlled that game. They scored late to make it 23-13, but you guys were in control the entire game. But there you are, Paul. You're on the field. You look up, and there are 4 zeros on the clock. And for the first time in 23 months, you walk off the field with a win. Can you take us to the emotions of that game? Obviously, goalposts are coming down. People are running everywhere. Can you take us back to that scene and kind of what you were feeling after that game?
I was dog tired because we had just done they had just done an 8-play drive, and I was on the field all 8 plays. And the thing is, the defensive lineman, the 2-minute drill is worse for defensive linemen because you have to you're going up against the biggest guys on the field. You're trying to run, you're trying to sack the quarterback, which is hard in of itself. And then there's running play after play after play, and you can't really sub unless you call timeout because the offense is going so fast. So I was just out of breath. And just, a lot of commotion, a lot of people wanting to interview me. And then the goalpost comes down, which is very exciting. And I actually was able to get a piece of that goalpost that I have in my man cave now.
Oh, wow.
That's a separate story. Yeah. It was pretty cool how I was able to get it. So this is when I was coaching at UCF. If you guys remember the Moat, the little bar right off campus.
Yep.
So it had closed down, unfortunately, and there was just a ton of memorabilia in the front lobby when I'd gotten to work one day. And I go in and ask one of the, admins up front, and she goes, "Yeah, that's from the Moat. Coach said each staff member can pick one thing from the pile that they want to keep." And I looked out there, I was like, "There's a piece of the goalpost. I want that." So got it and actually reframed it, put some pictures from the game, from the Marshall game up in it, and got that hanging in my man cave now. So that was a good find for me, for sure.
Yeah, that is a cool piece of UCF history there.
No doubt.
All right, so the team goes on a nice run there. We win 4 of the next 5. Another huge game at home, Houston. And this one is tight all the way to the end. They have the ball again, and we have to come up with a big stop. You make a big play on Kevin Cobb. What do you remember about the end of that game?
Similar, a lot of commotion. And again, if you remember, Art Briles quoted after the game, that play was supposed to be a handoff to the running back draw play, but because of the crowd noise, I guess the running back didn't get the audible, and so Kevin Cobb was just trying to improvise, and we did a little line stunt down the middle, and nobody blocked me, which is why I was able to sack him, and then 3 incomplete passes after that. So it was just very exciting, and I think the main thing about that game was just being bowl eligible, and then, beating Houston. I mean, gosh, they were top 10 in the nation. They had Kevin Cobb, running the air raid offense. So definitely a milestone, I would say, in the history of UCF football to get that 6th win, particularly with what happened the year before, going 0-11 in 2004. definitely a great accomplishment, and was happy and honored to be a part of it, to be a defensive captain during all that.
Yep. Yeah, we win the next two, including the nail biter against Rice at the end.
Oh gosh, so such a
huge place.
I hate the triple option. I hate it. It's so boring as a defensive lineman to go against that. And then what makes it even worse is they started throwing the ball at the end of the game. And the whole game you're expecting, dive. And then it's like, oh, this guy's actually pass blocking me. Oh, and there's the play. Yeah, and the quarterback just threw it. Dadgummit. And then, the secondary, they're not expecting it to be a throw. So they're maybe a little bit lax in coverage. But, yeah, Joe came up with a big play at the end, sealed the deal. And then I think we found out on the plane going back, because if you remember, we originally were going to play UTEP, and they had Jordan Palmer as their quarterback. So we were really concerned about them. And then I think I don't remember how it shifted, but it shifted that we were now playing Tulsa, and now it's a home game instead of an away game. So it all worked out. It all worked out great. Championship game didn't work out great, unfortunately, but it was great to be able to host the title game for sure.
Yes, but how cool was that plane ride back from Rice when you guys knew you were in, and then you found out it was going to be at home? But how awesome was that? Coming off that winless season and then all the way to the championship game.
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, I think at that point it was the second biggest turnaround in NCAA history. Like, I think only one other team at the time had gone 0-11 to 8 wins the next year. So, again, to be a part of history, great accomplishment. And again, it kind of built the confidence within the program. Recruits were able to see it and realize, hey, this isn't a team that's just going to go 500, whatever. They're now going to be able to compete and play for championships and make it to bowl games. And, that attracted a lot more people, I think. It kind of started everything.
Were you guys? I don't know. How do you feel about it as a college kid? Were you bummed that you had to go all the way to Hawaii? I mean, it's a far trip. Obviously, not a lot of fans. Or were you like, dude, I'm a college kid going to Hawaii? How did you find, or how did you receive the news that you guys are going to be flying all the way to Hawaii?
It was kind of a good consolation prize, because after the title game, we're bummed that we lost it, and that we lost it in such fashion, because we were undefeated at home that year. And yeah, they came in and were like, okay, we've just accepted a bid to the Hawaii Bowl, and it's like, oh. Okay, that's kind of cool. So, but yeah, that was exciting. And then if you want to talk about like amazing trip out there, but worst trip back. So going out there, the two defensive captains, me and Brandon Marshall, we got to fly first class, sitting right behind Coach O'Leary and his wife. But then for whatever reason, coming back, I guess we had donors and boosters that were flying back on the plane with us. I got bumped back to coach, didn't have an exit row. And that was the game that I tore my MCL. At the very end of the game, got hurt. And then I'm sitting by my teammate, Chris Wells. She had a grade 3 shoulder separation. And I want to say we got like, extra strength Tylenol. Like, okay, here you go, guys. Enjoy your 10-hour plane ride back. Just in writhing pain. So, but the trip overall was amazing. Great scenery. Again, that game didn't go how we wanted it to. And the unfortunate thing, it was my last game ever of my senior year. I actually played really, really well in the title game, and then in the bowl game, didn't really do too much. And then kind of an awful way to end my college career. I got hurt with like 20 seconds to go in the fourth quarter when we're getting ready to go into overtime, because my teammate fell into my leg and tore my MCL. So that was pretty upsetting. But still, overall, you look at the season as a whole, it's nothing but a success, because it gave the program confidence, gave the guys confidence, and kind of kick-started it to where it continued with Coach O'Leary afterward.
So we had Matt Prater on the show, I don't know, probably about a year ago now, and
yeah.
he told us not a week goes by that somebody doesn't bring up, obviously, the extra point that he missed. As this team, and obviously I'm sure you're disappointed, right, to your point, the way the season ends. What do you say to a guy like that, right? You're a senior at that point. Matt's a veteran guy as well. Do you bother even try to talk to somebody after you know that they're probably going through one of the worst things in their football life? How do you approach like your teammate? Are you just like, hey man, it's okay, or do you just kind of leave a guy alone and let him sort of have his space?
So I'd say at that point, like anything, after a guy misses a kick like that, to lose the game, and especially that's like the last play of the senior year in college, I just left him alone, let him kind of day or two, and then, met back up and told him, everything's okay. It's, again, like in football, you can't change what happened. All you can do is move on. And he actually brought up a good point to me later on when we were teammates with the Broncos. because you think about like a punter and a kicker, and I asked him, I'm like, dude, why is it so hard? And this is how he explains it to me. He goes, Paul, when I'm out there, he's like, I'm not like in a 3-point stance. I'm not like in a huddle. He's like, when I'm out there, I can see everybody in the stadium looking at me. And he's like, I'm either going to make the kick or I'm going to miss it. You know, I'm either going to kick the punt or I'm going to shank it, whatever. He's like, that pressure is just like unmatched. And he's like, you know, you could screw up. Nobody's probably going to know. He's like, if you make a play, everybody's going to know. He's like, but with me, it's either pass or fail. It's yes or no. And I was like, you know, I can kind of see that. That makes a little bit more sense. So, but yeah, it's unfortunate. And the snap and the hold are a big part of it as well. He didn't have the best snap or the best hold. And it was just one of those things, like as his leg was coming through, the holder was still kind of in the process of molding it. Still, it's an extra point's an extra point. You should always make those, but I don't think you can put the total blame on later like everybody did.
I mean, well, to be fair to Matt, he obviously bounced back and had a fantastic pro career, right? So I think he probably got the last laugh.
That's
there.
what I tell people. I tell people he's still playing in the NFL.
Yeah. So you end up coming back to UCF. You go off to the NFL. You have a few years there, but then you come back and you're a coach now, coaching with Coach O'Leary. What is that like? Is he just as hard as you, or harder on you as a coach than he was when you were a player?
It was like nothing had changed, and I think the thing that it took me a while to get used to. I mean, at that point in time, I was in my late 20s, 29, 30, but he was treating me just like I was a 22-year-old graduate assistant. Like there was no difference to him, and that's how he operated the program. You know, he didn't really care what you'd done. All he cares about is what you're doing, and you know, if I screwed up at something, he'd chew my butt just like any other GA. And but it was great, you know, to see the behind the scenes, to learn coaching. And the thing with coaching, it's kind of one of those things, if I'd gone through life and not done it, I would have kind of regretted it. And I was happy to do it for 3 years. I was able to coach some really good players. Was part of some really good UCF teams, you know, the Fiesta Bowl, winning the back-to-back championships. And the one thing I learned is I absolutely 100% do not want to coach football.
So what are you doing then?
So right now I'm in pharmaceutical sales back in my hometown of Savannah, the legal kind. And, you know, a lot of guys, like, it's a great career, and I'm just, it's kind of unfortunate that I didn't find out about this earlier, because I would have tried to pursue it a lot earlier. But like medical sales is a great transition for an athlete, because it's competitive, it's numbers driven. You're in the field, you still interact with doctors, and doctors just love ex-athletes, and it's really easy to sell to them. Yeah, I've been doing that for 6 years now in Savannah, and I love it. It's great.
Awesome. You still come back down to Orlando at all? You going to the games?
Yeah. My fiance and I are season ticket holders. I'm actually getting married in October, so I waited later in life to have my moment of weakness. But definitely excited. We've been season ticket holders now for 3 years. So yeah, we'll be at Boise. God, that's next week, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, next Thursday.
Gosh, yeah, it happens fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, we can't wait. And I think I messaged you about it. We're going to be having a big tailgate party. So we'd love to see you out there if you would stop by for a few minutes.
Yeah. I'll definitely stop by, say hi. Where are y'all located at?
We should be right in front of the stadium. So I think the varsity Knights do a thing right out there too. So we should be real close by, right in front of the main entrance.
Okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll pop over and say hi.
Well, Paul, you mentioned coaching and realizing that wasn't for you. Was there one moment or one thing where you're like, yeah, this isn't for me anymore? Anything stick out in terms of how you decided your coaching career was going to come to an end?
Just the fact that I had to debate, like, do I sleep in my office and get an extra hour of sleep, or do I drive 30 minutes home only to get up in a few hours and turn around and drive 30 minutes back? And then just I love working hard, but I'm a guy who likes to play hard as well. And I think in 3 years of being a GA and quality control guy, I got maybe a week off each summer. You know, it just, I got to have my me time. I got to have my free time. I don't think there was really one instant. It's the overall collective of it.
Well, obviously, UCF's gone through a bunch of coaching changes since you've been a part of the staff now. And the latest one is now Gus Malzahn taking over for Josh Heupel. Obviously, Scott Frost got UCF to an undefeated season. Heupel got him back to a New Year's Six game. Last couple seasons have been a little bit challenging. Gus Malzahn comes in now, new attitude, new energy, new approach. Some of your former teammates are part of that. Kareem Reed is now part of the staff there too. So a lot of the old Knights are coming back. What do you think of the hire of Gus Malzahn, and what do you think that positions UCF in the future?
I love it because my fear after I saw what happened with Frost and with Heupel, I was like, okay, we're going to become the farm league for the Power 5 schools. They're just going to keep plucking our coaches. It's the young 30-something, early 40-something coach who was a coordinator, comes in, has 2 great years at UCF and leaves, and then we just recycle that through. So the fact that we have a seasoned veteran coach who probably, based on how he does, isn't going to go anywhere, I'm definitely excited about that and more. I think it's more stable than having those other guys. Not that those other guys, didn't do well. I mean, they did an amazing job. Particularly, Scott Frost to take a winless team to an undefeated team in 2 years, again, which had never been done before. That was an amazing job. Yeah, I'm excited. And you look at the roster this year, there's a ton of, well, there's not a lot of returning starters. You got Dylan, obviously, who's done an amazing job. You got a few receivers here and there. You got some veteran O-linemen, and then you look at defense. And again, like the secondary is all a big question mark. And a few defensive linemen. You got Gilliard, solid linebacker coming. It'll be a challenge, but I think based on what I've seen him do at Auburn and what he's done throughout his career, I think Gus is the program's definitely in good hands with Gus for sure.
Well, we hope so. Like you mentioned, September 2nd, just 10 days away as we talk. So definitely looking forward to getting the season kicked off. Paul, before we let you go, we like to end every interview around here with some fun questions, kind of a rapid fire, random.
Sure.
Could be music, movies, sports, food. You never quite know what you're going to get. So are you prepared to take on these random questions?
Absolutely not, but let's do it.
All right, here's the first one I have for you. This is actually maybe not as random as I would have thought, but I read this and I was kind of surprised, and maybe you can tell me if it's true. Is it true that you got bit by a spider in the locker room and had to actually get some medical attention because of that?
It is true. So back, if you remember, they were clearing the woods and building the academic village back where the old practice field used to be. We had like 3 or 4 guys that got bit by brown recluses because we were living in the dorms. They had just cleared away the woods, and I guess there were spiders still in there. Yeah, I got bit on the knee and on the lip.
Oh, the lip.
Yeah, and I had to go to like the ER. They had to give me all this medication, dope me up, and then I remember a couple of days later it drained. It was absolutely disgusting, but yes, that did happen. That is true.
I'm sorry. I have a follow-up. Were you asleep when you got bit? Did you not know it was biting you in the lip? How did...
I have no clue. I have no clue when I got bit.
Oh wow. Because that's a giant spider. Now we're not talking like a little. That's a brown recluse is a relatively large thing. No.
Yeah. It's from the pictures I've seen. I assume it happened when I was sleeping. I don't know. I just remember my lip swelled up and I looked like Rocky after he fought Ivan Drago. I mean, it was bad.
I can't imagine. I feel like O'Leary would not look at that as an excuse to miss practice. I feel like he was like, yeah, it's a spider bite. Get it back out there.
Yeah, well, that was back when Cruz was coaching. He was a little more understanding of medical issues, so I was able to get the required medical attention.
Yeah, I feel like O'Leary would have had you back on the field the next day with the spider.
I guess when you're Paul's size, even a spider that big doesn't seem that big. So. But the size that you are, I'm sure there's not too many guys that you're scared of getting in a fight with. But if you had to pick one of your ex-teammates from UCF that you would not want to fight, who would it be?
Ryan Schneider. Because not to put too much of his business out there, I won't go into details, but I've seen him punch somebody in the face before, and yeah, that kid's head bounced off the pavement. And what's funny, like what I don't understand, like the thing that I learned early on, like if you're going to get in a fight with an athlete, you don't fight a pitcher and you don't fight a quarterback, because if they catch you with a right hook, I mean, you're gonna drop instantly.
I'm gonna have to talk to Schneider about that one.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, please do.
Yeah.
Just don't tell them it's me that gets you all the information.
Fair. Yeah, well, your identity will remain secret. You played D-line, obviously. When you watch a game now, what do you watch? Do you watch the quarterback? Or are you watching the line play? Obviously, I know former players, obviously consume the game maybe a little different. Do you find yourself? Do you even watch the ball, or are you watching kind of the line play to see what's happening?
I mean, depending on the scenario, like if it's my team, obviously UCF, I'm gonna be watching the UCF player at any given time. Quarterback if we have the ball, or D lineman if we're on defense. But yeah, I mean, I kind of I space around and drift. Being a coach, it kind of makes you watch the game a little bit differently because you can usually dissect the play and figure out who screwed up or who did well. But yeah, I would say if there was one position that I do pay the most attention to, it's definitely the defensive end because I like to see, who's rushing the passer good, who's playing the run good, all that stuff. So it's a position I played for 17 years, so I'm always going to migrate there for sure.
Well, you've been a professional athlete, but what would you rather be, a movie star or a rock star?
A movie star, for sure.
Any reason or no?
I mean, I would say just a little bit easier life. Rock stars, like it's good and everything, but I've heard the toughest thing about being a rock star is being on tour, being on the road. And then a movie star, I mean, you get to act in movies, you get to have people recognize you, sign autographs, make a lot of money. Probably a little bit more of a sustainable career than a rock star. So yeah, definitely movie star.
What kind of movie would you want to star? Do you a comedy guy? You drama, romantic comedy? Are you like an action superhero? What would you want to star in?
Gosh, I mean, my favorite movie is Shawshank Redemption. So I guess you would say that's a drama. But I mean, I like all movies. I'm not really partial to one genre or another. But yeah, I would definitely like to do drama, probably some action, because I could probably play the army guy, the action hero, the whoever. So yeah, that would be fun too.
All right. Well, we've mentioned your size. Was there ever a point in your career that you went to the offensive coaching staff and lobbied for just a tight end fade in the corner just to give you a jump ball for a touchdown?
No, because I cannot catch at all.
Okay.
Do you remember I got 2 career interceptions, and they were both because of bad passes. It wasn't the quarterback throwing the ball right at me.
Did you play basketball growing up?
I tried it out. I think because it was so different from football, I didn't enjoy it because football is, anaerobic, whereas basketball is more aerobic, back and forth, running up and down the court. Football, you go all out for 4 seconds, you rest for 30, and then when you do well, you get to go to the sideline and sip Gatorade, So I think just the difference of the 2 sports I didn't really enjoy. And the whole thing, it's like, oh, you're tall, like you must play basketball. I guess that whole aspect of it didn't really appeal to me. So,
all right, what's the worst chore to do around the house?
Laundry.
Yeah, it never ends, right?
It doesn't. It's always there for you.
It's always there, yeah. Never goes away. Never goes away. Well, Paul, obviously, we look forward to hopefully maybe catching up with you on September 2nd outside at the tailgate. Definitely looking forward to being on campus again and seeing a live game. It's been I feel like it's been too long, and we're definitely hoping to cheer on our Knights to victory. And obviously, you are a big part of UCF being where they are today. So just a big thanks for all you've done to represent the school and the program. And I know Mike and I look forward to catching up with you soon, and maybe we'll catch up with you down the road on the show again. You never know.
I greatly appreciate it, Adam and Mike. Thank you guys for having me on. It was a big honor, and please lean on me to get in touch with some of the other guys that maybe a name that comes up. The Doug Gabriels, the Mike Gaines of the world. Those guys, I know they'd love to be on as well. So thank you guys so much. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
Mike and Adam, sons of UCF. That'll move those chains. That's good enough for another UCF first down.
Let us get the cows in just one memento, Mike. Paul Carrington, nice enough to join us. Mike, he's a guy who you struck up a conversation with, and he was excited about coming on board. He couldn't wait to come on and talk about his time at UCF. And look, he played through a really weird time in UCF history. I mean, that was really the Kruzek era ended sort of unceremoniously, and he leaves, and GOL comes in and unapologetically just basically wipes the slate clean. And, we've seen this before in recent years with the Frost teams, but, they go from not winning a game to being in the conference championship game to a bowl game. Pretty remarkable turnaround. And just like we talk about with the guys who hung it out in 15 and 16 to get to 17, I guess the same should be said for those guys who were there in 03, 04, or 5, because it was really almost the exact same scenario minus the perfect season.
Right. And it kind of gets you wondering, like, which coach has left here on good terms? I mean, McDowell gets fired with the cell phone thing. Cruz gets let go. O'Leary has a winless season at the end. You got Frost, who, yes, we were perfect winning the national championship, but then half the people hate him because of the way he left us. And then the He-Upple, which is happening right now, not too many people pleased with him. So it's crazy how the coaching stints end here at UCF. And Paul was here during one of the crazy ones with Coach Cruz, and then the transition to O'Leary. Good stories out of him. He's part of some big games in UCF history. The 2005 season was huge, getting to our first bowl game, playing in the conference championship game. So good to catch up with Paul. I enjoyed that one. Yeah,
two things that struck out to me. One, you got to ask him to send you a picture of that goalpost mural or whatever that he built over there. That's got to be pretty cool photo to see. So maybe he can send us that. And two, a brown recluse is a giant ass spider. That is not. I don't understand how that happened. I mean, I guess he's a giant human, but my God, brown recluse is not something I think you want to mess with. And to get bit multiple times on the face, on the lip, nonetheless. Yeah, who knew?
If he didn't see it bite him, how do they know that's what bit him? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It is not the deadliest spider in the world, apparently. That is the Brazilian wandering spider, according to the Guinness Book of World Records. According to this as well, a brown recluse rarely kills people, but it's important to get medical attention because they can make you pretty sick. So brown recluse 1, brown recluse 2, Paul Carrington 0, Mike. Other people who end up on the short end of the stick are the cows of the week. Each week we pick something that has made us laugh, we think is funny, think is stupid, who knows. So cow of the week comes up. Mike, you always get to go first. You lead us off. What do you got?
We had somebody reach out to us after last week's episode and they have a complaint.
Let me get you his name. Sorry, it is Ben Pierce is the guy's name. And at Coach Pierce, I believe his handle is on Twitter.
And I don't know who is to blame for this. I don't think it's us, so we don't get to choose which ads play on this show, right? I think it's just kind of random. And he let us know that when he tuned in last week, he heard an ad for Florida State football season tickets. Now, this cannot happen on a Sons of UCF show. I don't know what we have to do. This has to get corrected. I don't know if anybody else heard this. I think maybe it has to do, maybe he may live close up there to Tallahassee or something, maybe some local stuff. I know sometimes when I hear the show, I get some ads in Spanish and maybe some Miami-based stuff. So maybe that's the thing. But how can we have ads to sell season tickets for Florida State on the Sons of UCF show? Are we the cows on this one? Who's in charge of putting this thing on? Spreaker? Are they the cows?
Yeah.
What do we have to do here?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. The Venn diagram of people at fault here could really couple over. So obviously we use a certain service and we opt in to let them play ads on our show. Those ads are dictated by the company. So essentially Spreaker, who is our provider, they make deals with companies to play ads on their shows. And so I think it's twofold. So obviously Spreaker makes these deals, but it is specific to, I think, the geographic area that you're in. And so when Ben, Coach Pierce here, reached out to me, he did say that he is close to Tallahassee. And so he figured maybe there was a local generation of ads. So I think that might be the case. So the Venn diagram is really us because we chose Spreaker because they chose FSU. And Ben, get out of Tallahassee, my friend. Go someplace. I mean, fine, move if you need to so you don't hear these ads anymore. So I think it's probably less Ben, though, and more Spreaker or us, I guess. But it certainly is it's an unwelcomed thing. He actually sent me a screenshot and with the audio playing, Mike. It is. I don't know if I can play it here through the speaker here. Let me try to do this on the fly. See if it's loud enough for you guys here. This is the ad that Ben heard here. Let me see if you can hear this.
College football is back, and FSU kicks off their 75th season on September 5th. Are you going to be at Doak Stadium when Florida State hosts Notre Dame? You'll want to be there. Come out and witness.
Well, that was the ad. So I don't know I don't know if you could hear that. I don't know whose fault that is, but I guess maybe us. I don't really know, but it was an eyesore for sure.
Well, it's definitely your fault. No, you just played it again.
I didn't play the whole thing. I only played 5 seconds.
Now, if there had been a mention of Mackenzie Milton and the Florida State Seminoles, I could have let it pass. But there was no mention of KZ in there. That can't happen here on this show. We got to do something about that. If they play a freaking cow, anybody who listens to this show that lives in Tampa, tell us. Do they play season ticket commercials for the cows?
I doubt it.
We might have to cancel the podcast altogether if that's the case.
Well, then the other question is UCF, are they doing this? Like, we got to get UCF to get an advertisement with Spreaker, and then maybe they'll play, a UCF ad before the show. That would be good synergy. I don't know if you're out there listening, Timo, maybe you're at DeSalvo, but maybe get a little ad time on your local podcast. What do you think?
I mean, that'd be great. We could skip Spreaker and skip the middleman. If anybody else wants to advertise with us, we're down to play some of those too. So,
yes.
Let us know.
Well, I mean, obviously, it would be great. Let's get some UCF ads out there. I don't know. Let's do that.
Right. So even the NIL guys, they have some businesses they want to promote, and they want to put them on here. We're happy to advertise for all guys, especially people if it's going to help other UCF guys.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we gotta figure that out. All right, let's go to my cow of the week, Mike. This is the former coach edition, I suppose, because I have two options of cows of the week. Our first is our old friend Scott Frost, who, as you may know, took his talents to Omaha and has been the head coach of Nebraska, which has not gone very well. He is 12-20 in his time there. He's had a couple of really rough seasons. I think the fan base getting a little antsy. They paid him a whole boatload of money, so I don't know what that means in terms of what his contract looks like, how much he's owed, so on and so forth, right? But then out of nowhere, news drops that the Nebraska Cornhuskers are under an NCAA investigation. And two allegations, one that analysts who are strictly to be an off-the-field position have been known to potentially be on the field doing hands-on coaching, which is against NCAA rules. And two, that they potentially held practices when they weren't supposed to. So there was a no practice time or whatever during some of the COVID stuff, and that there's actually some information, maybe even some videos that the staff in Nebraska was involved, including Scott himself. So that's got Scott in a little bit of hot water. Him and his AD came out and tried to address the media. Scott looked like he'd rather have been anywhere else in the world than looking at people with cameras and microphones. He said very, very little, and then he went away, Mike. So 12-20, they've obviously not done very well. And here's the thing, Mike. If this is not a fireable offense, probably in many respects, it's probably a slap on the wrist type of NCAA infraction. But if your coach isn't playing well, or your team isn't playing well, and your coach is not doing a good enough job, and you're going to put on probation, you know what that means? That means you can fire somebody for cause, which means you don't owe Scott Frost any bit of money if that's the case. So Scott Frost is cow of the week for potentially, I guess, putting himself at jeopardy of losing all that hard-earned money that he left UCF for. And B, 12 wins? I mean, it makes you think, what would they have won if they weren't cheating? Would he have been 6 wins, 8 wins, 10 wins? I mean, things are really going downhill there for Scotty boy.
Scott looks like he's aged like 40 years in the last 3 years. It doesn't look good for him. I don't know. I know a lot of people here don't feel bad for him at all because of the way he left. And maybe the way they took the recruiting database here and wiped the slate clean, and we couldn't use. There's a lot of things that the whole showing up to the conference championship game with that plaid shirt on kind of rubbed people the wrong way. So I don't think there's a lot of Knight fans that really feel bad for him. They kick their season off this weekend, right? Who are they playing to open the season?
Illinois.
Oof. Are they favored in this game, or
it's
on the road? Is it home?
You missed your pick 'em. I think it's on the road actually. I think Brett Bielema is the new coach at Illinois, so I don't know what to expect there.
All right. Well, he better get off to a good start, or else he's going to be in some big trouble over there in Nebraska. This may be it for him. This may be the last season, and if they don't like the way the team's playing, they just need an excuse like this to get rid of him, like you said, and they don't have to pay him anything.
Well, the second one is a Josh Heupel connection here, Mike. And it's not him specifically, but there's some folks on the social media applications that I don't really know. There's a thread that started, and basically there was a couple of guys saying that it started off our Big Game Boomer thread. So the guy who was on our live show, and he ranked Tennessee as having the worst offense in the SEC. And some UCF fans kind of got into his chat and just said, listen, here's one. This is UCF DK Dan Kearns. I'm telling you, he rolls you points on bad teams, and then late in games, his offense is simplistic. He tries to wear the other team down by going faster, works with better athletes. When you're playing good athletes, it doesn't. That's why we never won a big game in 2 years. And for some reason, Tennessee fans are just jumping all over this. This one guy, Josh's Journal, said, I watched a lot of UCF games to study Heupel's offense. You talk about regress like y'all are supposed to go 13-0 every year. You're UCF. You've had 4 winning seasons since 2015. Heupel was your coach for 3 of them, and he was dealing with a lot of opt-outs. For some reason, I feel like UCF fans are just trying to tell Tennessee people, like, hey, like it's going to look okay, but there's some cracks in here, so just FYI. And Tennessee fans are, like, jumping all over us, like we are sad that he's gone, like we are saying that he's the worst human being ever. I actually feel like looking through this thread, some UCF guys were just trying to be nice and being like, hey, there's one guy, UCF Jags fan, watch the second half of SMU, 100% his coaching style. That's Heupel in a nutshell. And then he says, sorry, I meant Tulsa, right? So it's funny. UCF fans are actually trying to be cordial here, but Tennessee people are really caping up for Heupel already. And he hasn't even won a game or even played a game with him yet.
All right. And it was actually, we saw a lot of the same thing at Heupel before he came to UCF at Missouri, where they would blow out the crappy teams and put up all kinds of big offensive numbers. But when it came down to facing the team with the pulse, with the defense, he ran into trouble. So, if Tennessee doesn't want to take our warnings and they want to go into this season thinking they're going to be good again, then let them suffer. I don't care. It's going to be harder for them once reality sets in and they see this Heupel team in action. And, Heupel's been put in a tough spot because Tennessee's going through some stuff anyway. I don't know if people should expect much out of them. But if they want to do that and then get their hopes up to be crushed later, then that's on them, I guess.
Yeah, I just feel like, the Twitter mafia, and shout out to Chris Robinson for his new shirt that dropped tonight. I feel like the Twitter mafia is actually being relatively cordial here, just saying, hey, just FYI, heads up, this is what you may expect, and people are just jumping all over it. So Tennessee people who just haven't or don't even want to watch a game and see what happens, I guess you guys are cow of the week as well. So former coaches rank out the cow of the weeks for us this week, Mike. But our current coach will lead our current team onto the field in 10 short days, and you can rest assured that everyone here at the Sons of UCF, which is really just me, Mike, and who I learned this week, who is the guy who's actually driving this show, Trace Trelko. There was a nice Dungeon comment that said Trace Trelko basically makes the show go. So join Mike, Trace, and I as we take you up to kickoff September 2nd. We'll have a live show on Thursday. We'll have a regular pod again next week, and then a special live show on Wednesday, since obviously the game will be on Thursday. So 3 more chances to have Sons of UCF entertain you and get you ready for UCF in Boise State. It's going to be a fun 10 days, my friend.
Yep. Trace Trelko drives the show. Not according to that other review we got on Apple.
That's fair.
Said no thanks.
Well,
so
to be fair, he said
1-1, I guess.
He said Trace Trelko carries the show week in and week out.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. We didn't pay him the big bucks for nothing, right?
Well, I mean, that's gonna be tough. I mean, listen, you're a pretty svelte young man yourself. I've got some COVID weight still, Trace. I mean, we got to be heavy if Trace is carrying us week in and week out. That's gotta be tough. We saw his 5K time. You know what I mean?
That's right. So, but Trace is a professional. That's the reason he's here, is to drive the bus on Thursday nights. And he does a great job with it. So glad to have him on. And, his walk and talks are second to none. Now that Sammy's gone, nobody does the walk and talk around here like him. So good part of the team, Trace. He's doing some good work. He's at the press conferences. He's doing a lot of stuff for us.
Yes.
So I appreciate it.
Yes, he's forcing me to use YouTube, which is not something I knew how to do, so I appreciate that. I actually responded back to this guy and said, I think of our show more like a clown car and Trace is the designated driver. So either way, make sure you tune in on Thursday, live show. Me, Mike, and Trace will be there getting you set. I have no idea who the guests are yet. Neither does Mike. We won't find out probably until about 6:40 the day of, in which case we have to come up with questions on the fly. So tune in for that. And again, make sure that you're following us on social media. Check out twonightsmedia.com. That's where you can get all of our stuff. Don't forget the pool tracker, Mike, is coming up soon. And don't forget tailgate time on Thursday, September 2nd, 2 p.m. to whenever. Come join the Sons of UCF for a party.
That's right. And next week's show, I guess should I start getting my picks ready, or are we bringing the pick segment back for next week? It's a game week. And, we got to start preparing for Boise. This is it, boys and girls. Time. The off season's over. We had a very eventful off season. Now let's get to the fun stuff. Football.
We're so close. Again, this is if you're listening to us now, there will not be another Saturday without college football for another 3 or 4 months. So enjoy it while we've got it. Again, we will get you all set and ready to pound the Blue Smurfs into green turf. But everybody have a fantastic week. Be safe out there. Make sure to tune in on Thursday. Subscribe, rate, review, do all that good stuff. Mike and I appreciate you. Can't wait to meet all y'all for the tailgate. And it's going to be a fun next 10 days. Everybody be safe. Go Knights.
Miles on.